Welcome to the August 12th, 2024 Troy City Council meeting. Please rise for our invocation and then remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. We give you thanks, Father in heaven, for this beautiful day and for the blessings you've given each and every one of us here in the city of Troy. We ask that you be with us in this chamber tonight and throughout our city as we do the business of the city and come together for the good of the city. We ask that you continue to be with our first responders, our police officers, our firefighters, our EMS technicians, our employees and members. Of course, our DPW staff who's out on the roads as well, also first responders. And really everybody in this great city who works so hard to make it to the great city that it is. We ask that you continue to bless us and bless all those who need your help and be with us forever. In his name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll call the August 12th, 2024 Troy City Council meeting to order and ask for the roll call for Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Chanda?
Here.
Councilmember Gunn?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Here.
All present this evening. There are no certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have no carryover items, so we move on to public hearings. We do have one this evening, as you most likely are aware. E1 is a public hearing, planned unit development, file number PUD-020, JPLN 2023-0021. Proposed Village of Hastings PUD, east side of Livernois, north of Square Lake, PIN 88-20-03-301-008, 023-024-025, and 88-20-03-351-004. Section 3, presently zoned NN Neighborhood Node Q and R1B, one family residential zoning district. This item will be introduced by our Community Development Director, Brent Savadon. We'll get started. Turn it over to you, Brent.
Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, Mayor Baker, City Council. I've got a fairly lengthy presentation this evening. There's a lot of people in the audience. I think it requires some level of detail. I think it's appropriate to start. We've got some people watching on television, some people attending, and also some council members who don't have a lot of experience with planned unit development. So we'll start with an answer to a simple question that I assume some people are going to be asking. What is a planned unit development, or PUD? The intent of a PUD is to permit flexibility in design and to allow for creativity. That's taken from the intent statement from the City of Troy ordinance, and it's intended to accomplish a number of goals. I'm not going to read all of them. I highlighted some of them. Higher quality development, preservation of natural, historic, and cultural resources, enhanced housing, compatibility of design and use, and consistency with the intent of the master plan. A PUD is a negotiated process. It's attempting to find a balance between the goals of the developer. The developer wants ultimate flexibility, to make profit and to do what the developer wants to do, and the city wants ultimate predictability. And in the negotiation process, you meet in the middle and you create a planned unit development that is approvable. In terms of the process for planned unit development, we've got a process that requires a first step for concept development plan approval or CDP. And during the CDP concept stage, three things happen. The concept plan gets approved, the property is rezoned to PUD, and the PUD agreement, which is the legal document that supports the PUD, it is approved. That's the concept. The next step is the preliminary development plan, which is essentially a preliminary site plan, and it can be for the whole project or for individual phases during the project for complex projects. Both of those steps require a planning commission public hearing, a planning commission recommendation, and then a city council public hearing. Once those two phases are completed, we go to final development plan or engineering plan approval, which is administrative. And once that's approved, the applicant can seek building permits. Now, I would note we allow developers to combine steps, to combine the concept sketch and the preliminary development sketch. We did it for the last PUD, the Village of Troy PUD at Long Lake. The developer is seeking the same thing. So this evening, we're combining CDP and PDP into one step. And I would note that the PUD agreement that is in your packet was slightly modified. There's been a revision to it. Basically, the entity name has changed, and an Exhibit E was added where the applicant provided photographs of the 3 homes that are proposed to remain. That's the only changes to the document. Every PUD standard is held to standards in the zoning ordinance. There's 15 of them. The ordinance requires that the development will accomplish a sufficient number of the following objectives. I'm not going to read them all, but they include a mixture of land uses and a recognizable and material benefit. Again, there's 15 of them. The standard is for a sufficient number. It doesn't say majority, it doesn't say 8, it doesn't say 15. That is a subjective standard that is to be applied by each and every person that votes on the PUD. What is sufficient? That's for you to decide individually and ultimately as a board. Every PUD is different. It's different in terms of scale, scope, use, and design. I'll give you 3 quick examples. The very first PUD in Troy was Woodside Bible Northwick PUD. It's on Rochester Road, a little bit south of South Boulevard. It includes a church, 84 townhomes, 84 condominium units, and a preserved 25-acre wetland. Another early PUD, Big Beaver Kilmer PUD. It includes 19,000 square feet of retail and 16 townhome units. That is on the north side of Big Beaver, east of Livernois, west of Rochester. And another early PUD, this is Rochester Commons PUD. This is located on the north side of Big Beaver, a little bit east of Rochester Road. It includes 80 townhome units and a private park. Just 3 examples, all different, again, in design, scope, scale, and use. So let's get back to the subject at hand, Village of Hastings PUD. The subject site is located north of Square Lake, east of Livernois. It's 6 acres inside, and it includes 5 parcels. One of those 5 parcels, you can see it here, is presently zoned NN neighborhood node. The other 4 are zoned single-family residential. The neighborhood node portion of the plan. In 2018, there was a 14-unit, 3-story townhome project that was approved, and there's been multiple extensions granted. That project received significant criticism from residents, including the building's too tall, the building's out of context, and the access from Square Lake is inadequate. In fact, the criticism initiated a text amendment to lower the building height and also increase the buffer in the NN neighborhood node district. And that was done, but this approval was grandfathered in after the amendment was made. So getting back to what's proposed this evening, the applicant proposes a 33-unit residential development comprised of 4 different housing types, 8 ranches, 18 townhomes, 4 duplexes, and 3 single-family homes. Those 3 single-family homes are existing. They front on Livernois Road, and they're located just south of the proposed drive connection from the development to Livernois. The maximum height of any unit is proposed to be 26 feet. Although a number of units are significantly less than that. I'll get into that. Access, as I indicated, is here, this arrow on Livernois Road. This arrow here is indicating an EVA, emergency vehicle access. In the event that there's an emergency and this entryway is blocked, emergency vehicles can exit or leave through this EVA. It will otherwise function as a pedestrian connection from the development to Square Lake Road. The development requires 66 spaces, and they're providing 97 spaces comprised of 25 surface lot spaces, 42 driveway spaces, and 30 garage spaces. Traffic impact. This report was completed by the city's traffic consultant, OHM Advisors. There's a lot of numbers on that table, but I'll try to simplify it. This report was prepared fairly early on in the process when the development was comprised of 44 units. It has been reduced by 11 units. It's now only 33. I did not bother to ask for a revised traffic impact, or traffic memo, I should say, and I'll tell you why. Because according to our experts, the AM peak, which is the two busiest morning rush hours, there's only a total of 20 trips in and out of a development at 44 units. And in the PM peak, in the afternoon, the busiest two rush hour hours, there are only 26 total trips in and out. What does this mean? This means in morning rush hour, there's one car about every 3 minutes entering or leaving the site. And in the afternoon, there's one car every 2 minutes, roughly, entering or leaving the site. And over a 24-hour period, 316 cars coming in and leaving the site. What does this mean? It means the impact of the site on the adjacent road network is negligible, and it would be imperceptible to most road users. Landscaping. The applicant is proposing a significant landscape buffer along the north and east property lines, which is where it abuts single-family residential uses. They propose greenbelt trees along Livernois and Square Lake Road, and there'll be a total of 417 trees on this site, a lot more than there is now. In terms of amenities, I highlighted in blue where the applicant proposes sidewalks and paths. He also proposes a sports court, a putting green, common areas, including 2 butterfly gardens, and approximately 1.3 acres of open space. I'll go through the renderings really quickly. This is the connected ranch unit. There's 4 of those. The height of those measured to the midpoint of the roof is about 19 feet. This is the detached ranch. There are 4 of those, height 19 feet. This is the 2-story duplex, 4 units in total. These are proposed to be 18 feet high. And the townhomes, 18 total, they're 26 feet tall. And these are the 3 existing single-family homes that are proposed to remain. They are not historic. They're old, but they're not listed on any register, local, state, or federal. They're proposed to remain. In terms of building materials for the new homes, it's comprised of asphalt shingles, brick veneer, board and batten siding, painted wood trim, and insulated vinyl windows. In terms of the evolution of the project, when we first, I believe, I should have looked this up, I'm going off memory. I think when we first saw the concept, very informally, I think it was 48 units. But when I asked OHM to prepare a traffic study at that time, it was 44 units, or about 7.3 units per acre. And over the course of the negotiation process, it was reduced to 33 units an acre, which is about 5.5 units per acre. The number of old homes, again, they're not historic, but they're old, and there's value in preserving them. That increased from 2 originally to 3. The applicant increased the number of internal sidewalks and crosswalks, and the architecture was, in my opinion, improved significantly. Master plan. As you know, we have a conceptual master plan. We show the nodes of these, I call them blob maps, with concentric circles at the intersections. The star shows the rough location of the project. It's classified as a combination of neighborhood node and single-family residential. So what does the land use plan say about single-family residential? Here's some of the terms in the master plan. We want to preserve the existing quality residential neighborhoods of the city. We want walkable, safe places to live, and we want neighborhoods to be linked with nearby services. This is the node language from the recently approved master plan, and I'm unfortunately going to have to read some of this because I think it's applicable here. Development in this area, historically known as Troy Corner, should be especially considerate of the historic past. Any new development should integrate various types of community gathering spaces. such as parks, public art, historical elements, plazas, community centers, and recreational facilities into the design. Adaptive reuse of existing historic structures should be considered before demolition or relocation of these resources. The node will have low-intensity uses of a non-automotive oriented nature that creates a central neighborhood village that is walkable and accessible. I think that's a that's enough reading for now. My voice is getting very dry. But I think that it's pretty clear that at least the neighborhood node component of this application is consistent with that verbiage. Getting back to the PUD standards again, you're asked to consider if this development meets a sufficient number of those 15 standards. The Planning Commission considered this project at 5 public meetings. 2 of them were public hearings. And on May 28th, 2024, the Planning Commission recommended approval 6-2. We got a lot of public comment on this, as you all know. There's a provision in the zoning ordinance. This is a rezoning. In Troy, PUDs are approved through the rezoning process. Because it's a rezoning, residents, neighbors have the right to submit protest petitions. If a valid protest petition is filed in opposition to a rezoning, like one has been, City Council cannot approve the request unless it's approved by a 2/3 majority vote. And what qualifies for a valid protest petition? If the petition is signed by the owners of 20% or more of the area of land included within an area extending outward 100 feet from any point on the boundary of the land, excluding public land. It's a mouthful, I know it just rolls off the tongue, but basically it's represented here. And cutting to the chase, the petition was signed by 33% of owners of that area. Therefore, it is a valid protest petition, and approval of this application will require 5 affirmative votes of council. And with that, I can answer any questions you have. And I would state, Mr. Mayor, that the applicant has submitted a PowerPoint presentation as well.
Okay. So I guess with that in mind, are there questions specific for Mr. Savadant that we should ask now? Or do you feel that we should wait for the applicant's presentation? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crenga.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one that relates to our own standards, so I do
Perfect.
think that is probably best for you, Director Salzman. So I want to go over just and get your input on the meaning of public. Until I submitted my questions today, I think I had a different understanding of public for a PUD. When I look at the standards, it says a public, under number 3, a public improvement or public facility. Number 4, a recognizable and material benefit. It says to the ultimate users of the project. So that could be those in the development. But then it says and to the community. What does that mean? To me, that means beyond just the development. That means to people who may walk into the development, people who live in the area. And because of that language, I think I've wrestled with the meaning of public. The one that you gave me was different than how I've understood it. So if you can just describe a little bit of what that means.
Well, again, there's 15 standards, and you just referenced a handful of standards. Every project is different. There was a back and forth. You had a question during the Q&A in preparation of the meeting where you mentioned the Village of Troy PUD. Again, different project. That PUD incorporates a public pathway that will very clearly be public. It will allow for the extension of the Troy's non-motorized pathway through that area, including a meandering path that goes up that hill. That was proposed by the applicant. That is clearly a public benefit because there'll be access provided to any member of the public who wants to use it, and I believe the city's going to assist in the maintenance of that trailway system. This project has none of those elements. The improvements will be like the parks, the butterfly gardens, the sports court, et cetera, will be for residents of the development only. There's not a requirement that there be public amenities that are available to all residents of the city of Troy. It's not a requirement of the zoning ordinance. it wasn't proposed and it wasn't sought by the Planning Commission.
Does that answer your question? For now. Councilmember Gunn?
Couple questions. If this was not a PUD, how many single-family homes could be built there? Was that looked at?
The applicant showed a slide, and I think there's a slide in his PowerPoint presentation this evening that shows the 14-unit townhome project,
Which is from 2018, right?
which is approved 2018 but extended, and 10 single-family detached units on the portion of property that's zoned single-family residential. So a total of 24 units.
Did they look at what the price might be on some of these properties that,
You'd have to ask the developer.
okay. What about, because there's been a lot of concern lately along that Square Lake corridor of flooding. What kind of impact, I guess, has there been a study done on that?
No impact that I'm aware of. All I can say to that, because I'm not a civil engineer, is through the process like we do for site plans, if this were to receive approval from City Council, the next step would be submitting engineering plans. They'd be designed, put together by a civil engineer, reviewed by civil engineers to ensure that it meets all engineering standards, and further to ensure that it doesn't impact surrounding properties or the city in terms of flooding.
One last question. When you did the traffic study, was that just homeowners or people that are living or residing in the PUD?
The traffic study was a traffic memo, relatively simple in terms of scope, and that was completed by the city's traffic consultant.
I think his question was,
Oh, I'm sorry.
do those studies or the memo, does that encompass any potential visitors to the properties as well? Or
Yes.
is that just people who live there?
Yes,
It's all encompassed.
yes, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. The numbers for the trip generation are taken from an engineering manual. It's called Trip Generation. It's updated every few years. It's based on data that's research from cities all over North America so that it's up to date and accurate.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Brooks?
Thank you, Mayor. In considering, this is kind of off of the traffic study as well, do they consider any other proposed, like, things that may be happening? For example, Smith Middle School is going to be, the new entrance will be off of Livernois as well. Do they consider any of that when you look at the traffic studies?
As it was explained to the Planning Commission, the conflicts with cars that are driving to school to drop off kids and then leaving school when they pick their kids up, that's independent of this development. That is an issue that exists today. This development isn't going to add to that necessarily. It's an independent variable, and if the school district, in combination possibly with the city, could reduce that issue, there's various ways to do that. There could be more queuing provided on the property. The city could eliminate the ability to drop children off. They could stagger arrival and pickup times. There's different ways to go about that. And this project doesn't necessarily add to that issue. It's an independent issue.
One other question.
Go ahead.
Was there a consideration, the entrance right now is off of Livernois, was there a consideration to also have another entrance off of Square Lake, or why was there only maybe one entrance?
Again, it was reviewed by the traffic consultant, the city engineer, and based on the volume of traffic, it didn't necessitate a second entryway on Square Lake Road. The one entryway on Livernois with the EVA to provide emergency access was sufficient.
So I have another question.
Go ahead.
So what if the project is expanded? Would they maybe eventually have to create another entryway potentially if it?
I can't answer that because I don't know what that project would be. I don't know. I don't know how many units, what it's going to look like. If the developer acquired more property and wanted to expand this, they'd have to go back through the entire process with submitting a complete PUD application, planning commission, public meetings, public hearing in front of city council, et cetera. And we would vet it like we did this application. So I'm not dodging your question. I just don't know
Yeah, no, I understand.
yeah.
Thank you.
Additional questions? I'll look to this side now. Asked and answered? All right, well, Mr. Abathera wants to present, correct, or representatives?
Yeah.
And our rules allow 15 minutes. That's my understanding, so.
$15 minutes?
I believe that's what the rules allow for.
Okay.
So.
I would like to begin by thanking the City Council and everybody in attendance for being here tonight. The feedback we have gotten on this PUD throughout the process so far has been very helpful. I have listened to and taken suggestions into account.
Can we increase the volume? It's a little hard for me to hear too, but I don't know if Aileen says something you can do.
I have listened to and taken suggestions into account as I've revised and updated the plans. I also share your concern for Troy as a community and want to see it thrive. I've lived and raised my family in Troy for the past 37 years. During this time, I have volunteered as a coach for baseball, soccer, and football. Currently, I serve as the chairman of the Troy Building Code Board of Appeals. Troy is my home, and I also want what is best and most appropriate for the city. Now, I'd like to share a quick history of the Square Lake Livernois property and how we got to our most current plan for the space. I originally bought the 1 acre piece of property behind John's Market, and it is currently approved by the Planning Commission for the 14 three-story townhomes. As you can see up there, that's what I'm currently approved for, is those 14 units. Following the site plan approval process, the homeowners of the 4 existing homes on Livernois approached me about selling their homes. I purchased them and originally planned on tearing them down to build a 10-home subdivision with homes in the 4,000 to 5,000 range. So I had this design right here to put in 10 homes in the 4,000 to 5,000 range. However, after going through the homes numerous times and reading the master plan for the intersection, I recognized their charm, beauty, and historic importance to this particular intersection of Troy. I went to the planning department and asked what type of zoning would work best to save some of these existing homes. They told me that PUD was the only viable option. Subsequently, I revised the development plan to this, saving 2 of the existing homes and building 49 units made up of 12 3-story townhomes, 4 ranch-style homes, 9 2-stories with first-floor masters, and the rest being 2 stories. The feedback after presenting this at the July 26, 2022 Planning Commission meeting was clear. No 3-story homes. Planning Commission was frustrated with the increased 3-story high-rise density in the area. And I can see why. Who here likes the 3-story condos next to Pepe's? We all know where they are. I don't think there's anybody in this room that likes the look of those condos. This is why I went back and revised the plan to eliminate the 3-story units entirely. After that, I had a meeting with the homeowners of the Telford subdivision. The homeowners expressed their concerns regarding the density of the units I had planned, and after careful consideration, I listened to the homeowners and reduced the number of units along the north property line to keep the area from feeling too congested. So again, after listening to the homeowners of the Telford sub, I returned to the drawing board and revised the plan to reduce the number of units along the north property line. So I used to have 4 ranch units here. I reduced it to 3. I should maybe show it on that side.
Oh, yeah,
I used to have 9 units over here, and I reduced it to 5. So I took it down because these units right here back up to the Telford subdivision right there. So I listened to the homeowners and reduced those. At the November 28th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting with public comment, I received more very valuable feedback. I thank those who gave their valuable input. Many residents, like Telford Subdivision President Jeff Williams, commented that the 6 units facing Livernois would be an eyesore and not to match the Troy historic corners. So that would be these 6 units right here. So I removed those 6 units and put the old home back in its spot. So I removed them. Instead, residents such as Jay Welch, Rosemary Thomes, and Jeff Williams wanted to absolutely save the existing historic homes. Jay Welch's comment was they look like something out of a Hallmark Christmas movie. Again, I listened, and I'm leaving 75% of the homes and removing the 6 units from the plan. Here are a few other ways I altered the plan to better suit Troy and its residents after listening to feedback. Resident Teresa Clancy expressed concern there was too much density in the PUD. So 3 more units were removed. So we moved these 3 units here and took more density out of the project. This reduced density and opened up the area. This change enabled me to add more sidewalks. The current sidewalk plan now totals just over 2/3 of a mile, which allows for more walkability to the remaining 3 neighborhood nodes at the corner of Square Lake and Livernois. So everything in red up here that you see are sidewalks. So if you're living in this unit here, you can take the sidewalk down, across, over, out to Square Lake, and cross Livernois this way, that way. Or as you notice, there's new sidewalk now all the way down Square Lake here. You can go all the way down that way. So with 2/3 of a mile, interior of my project, you can walk anywhere you want to be. To address resident Dave Pampreet's concerns about lighting, a photometric lighting plan has been added that utilizes solar-powered lighting that balances visibility and safety without compromising the feel of the residential feel of the area. Fire, garbage, and delivery truck turnaround concerns were addressed by adding 3 international fire codes, International Fire Code compliant turnarounds. So when you come into the subdivision or the townhomes, you have a turnaround right here, the truck can pull in, back up and pull out, and come all the way down to here, turn around, back up, pull out, or come here, pull around, and pull out. Those are used by fire trucks if they need to come into it, garbage trucks, prime delivery trucks, UPS, everybody that comes in and delivers packages into this area will use these turnarounds to turn around. Residents like Ann Coleman and Dave Pampreet were concerned about green space. 24% of the PUD will be reserved for green space. For context, the city ordinance requires only 20% to be green. So on that plan, everything that's green is the green space. There's 24%. And I think on the one plan it shows like 1.3 acres. Another question that has come up from neighbors like Carol Koch and Madeline Semetsky pertains to the EVA to Square Lake. This is designed to the city standards, and there are many of these EVAs throughout our city. You can see on the screen how they're designed for pedestrian and bicycle traffic to enter them, but not for everyday vehicles. Emergency vehicles are especially educated as to location and how to drive through the breakaway ballards if needed. So you can see that you can walk through them and ride a bike, and yet an emergency vehicle can break through and get into it. Additional comments were brought up regarding the city's master plan. I've been referencing this master plan and know that any development on the Livernois and Square Lake area should be especially considerate of the remaining historic assets of the neighborhood, as well as adapt and reuse existing historic structures, when possible before demolishing them. As I have worked with the Planning Commission as well as listened to residents like Jay Welch, Jeff Williams, and Rosemary Thomes, while revising my plans accordingly to the feedback I have received, I will be aligning with these guidelines of the master plan by choosing to save 75% of the existing Livernois homes. Another thing the master plan states is that the neighborhood should be walkable and accessible with a village feel, which I will contribute by providing walkability with the sidewalks that will provide easy access to the rest of the neighborhoods. After my January 9th, 2024 meeting, the Planning Commission still thought it was too dense. I came back on April 9th with a new plan where I removed 2 more units. Following these changes, the PUD was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. So in the last one, there used to be 6 units here. We reduced it down to 4 units. So coming back, we got rid of 2 more units. I want to reiterate my thanks for all the valuable feedback I've gotten. It's really helped in the planning process. After all the Planning Commission meetings, public comments, and letters, the current recommended plan is to see 75% of the historic homes as requested and build 30 new units for a total of 33 units. This is comprised of 6 buildings of 2-story attached single-family homes that will not be taller than 26 feet in height, and 8 single-story ranch units that is highly desired in the city. So you can see my height of my ranch units are no more than 20 feet tall. I know on Brent's it said 19, but they're no more than 20 feet. The existing neighborhood homes are 30 feet tall. So I have a 10-foot difference where they back up and touch the neighbors' houses. The interior of my project has a 2-story unit, which is 26 feet tall, still 4 feet taller than any existing home that's around there. So everything I have is low density and low height inside my project. I now would like to talk about our recent weather and the turmoil that has been left in its wake. As it sits right now, all 6.1 acres of my project surface drain directly into the catch basins. Surface drains means the water just hits the ground, flows straight into the catch basins, and goes into them. The PUD will have storm drains around the entire property that drain into a detention basin. This basin will be designed to Oakland County drain standards for a 100-year flood. A detention pond, also known as a dry pond, is a reservoir designed to temporarily store stormwater runoff until it can be safely released downstream. Detention ponds are dry most of the time and are only used after storms to hold back floodwaters and prevent creeks and rivers from flooding. Our pond will hold our rainwater and release it at a controlled rate into the King Drain that runs down Square Lake to the Sylvan Glen Golf Course while avoiding the Sylvan Glen Golf Course. So it drains directly into the drain. Next thing I'd like to dive into a little bit deeper is into the topic of density. Many residents, like Carol Koch, Dave Pamprete, Ann Coleman, Jeff Williams, Teresa Clancy, to name a few, along with members of the Planning Commission, all had concerns about density. So as I listened throughout the process and reduced the density of the PUD, my project will prevent the construction of the 14 three-story units that are approved and nobody here likes, replacing them with one-story ranch units, two-story low-scale single-family homes. The total density of my project is calculated as 6.1 acres of property with 33 units equaling 5.4 units. So the entire piece of property is 6.1 acres, 33 units, 5.4 units per acre. In comparison, the condos next to Pepe's, Tisbury Square, are high density. There are 43 units on 2.63 acres. That equals 14.3 units per acre. That number there, I think, is high density, 14.3 units per acre. The Village of Troy PUD on Long Lake and Rochester Road, we all see that being built right now, which I was told to set the bar high for PUDs, has 20.48 acres in that development. In that development, there are 20 two-story single-family homes, 56 six-unit two-story buildings, and 73 three-story units, which equal a unit of 146 units to be 7.1 units per acre. And you can look at this project. Here's the residential single-family homes. These are all the two-story here, and these are the 73 three-story units. Not two-story, three-story. Another PUD of note is a project on John R. and Waddles called the Enclave of Troy. It has 6.6 acres with 36 units equaling 5.45 units per acre. This is the model that was put into the master plan for its low scale and low intensity. So this is a bigger, more units with 5.45 units. I have less units per acre than what's in the master plan. None of these projects that I've shown up here have ranch units the city stated they would love to see. In my project, 24.5% of the units are single-story ranch units and 0 three-story. Tallest we have is two-story, and these are all single-story ranch units. And as I said, there are 0 three-story units. I have to disagree with people who say I still have a high-density project. What I'm asking for is only 9 units over what is currently permitted on the property. My plan will not compromise the intersection as it aligns with the master plan. There have been numerous letters to the City Council as well as comments from many residents like Debbie Lozecki, John Mallett, Daniel Feverett, Lynn and Larry Cronin, Linda Lucas, Winnie Degwell, to name a few, where they strongly oppose the 3-story condos. Ms. Mal Halapala of the Planning Commission, who also lives close by the project, said that I listened and always came back with what was asked for, such as less density and no 3-story units. Despite this, residents like Marcia Bossenberger, who stated back in November of 2023 that it sounds like the applicant is not listening. But as you can see by all the letters, comments, meetings of the Planning Commission, I have listened to concerns and have made the changes. However, after I made these changes at my last meeting, residents stood up and said they want 3-story units on this corner now. The comment was that they would look cool there. I don't think these 3-story units like this would look cool in that area. At this time, I can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Abathera. Questions for the applicant? Councilmember Gunn.
How many, do you know how many square feet this project would, not acres, or how many square feet of living space would you have?
Oof. I would have to get back with you on that. The single-family ranches are 1,800 square feet, and there's 8 of those. The 3 stories are 1,600 square feet, and there's 22 of those. And the single-family, our existing homes, they're probably between 12 to 1,800 square feet each. I don't know the exact number on those.
Did you also do a price study in terms of pricing of what?
I did not do a price study, but I know the numbers I'd like to get. I feel that the 2-story townhomes would be right around the 325 to 350 mark, and the single-story ranches would be in the 550, possibly to 600. Which, in comparison, is I also build subdivisions, and I build 4,000 square foot houses. Our cheapest starter home in Troy is now $900,000, and that's for a 4-bedroom colonial that's under
Which is what you
$3,000.
would put there if you had
Excuse me?
single-family homes, right?
Excuse me?
That's what you would put there if you had
I
single-family.
I would put 4,000 to 5,000 square foot homes there.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mayor. So I was out there over the weekend. I saw the older historic homes. There's people living in a number of them. Can you explain how does that work? Are those folks, have you
Those
already
people that are living
sold
there-
them? They haven't sold them yet? And then what's your plan to redevelop them? I mean, will you just keep them the same kind of charm, look and feel, but change the siding, or what is that?
So those 3 homes are rented out, or those 4 homes, excuse me, are rented out right now. So I own the properties free and clear, and I rent them out while I'm waiting. I've been at this now for 5.5 years. As I stated, my idea was to tear them down, so I wasn't doing much with it. And then when I want to start saving them, we plan on fixing them all up and selling them. I do not want to hang on to those houses and rent them. When I say they're beautiful houses inside, they're amazing. They got leaded glass windows. They got the fancy door locks, the floors that creak and the doors that creak. That's not my style at all. I wanted to live in a house like that, but there are people that love that 100-year-old charm. And you can look in there, some of those homes are 100, 102 years old. I think the earliest, the 99 years old is the earliest, is the latest house there is. Everything else is older than that. Doing the outside, we have not cut the trees down because up until 6 months ago, we were tearing them down. So I was not going to spend $40,000, $50,000 to update to a house when it's going to be torn down. If my project passes, we will be in there. We will clear out all the landscaping. We will cut the trees that are too close to the house. We will upgrade it. We will keep the same charm, but it will be updated into a nice, clean-looking house that's very presentable.
And just to clarify, the one you're preserving at the very top to the north, that's the one with the barn, is that right? The red barn, or is that not included?
The very one to the north is the one that's not going to be preserved. That was built in 1949, and there's nothing special about that house. Now, I've taken Jen Peters, who works at your museum over there, and she walked through the houses. She was just, she likes old houses. She likes old things, and she was very happy with those and put in there that she could see 2 of them being saved. She wasn't even too thrilled about the 3rd one, but since the residents want the 3rd one saved, I'm saving it. She's talked about the 2026, we're going to have a 250-year birthday for our country, and she wants to put plaques in front of those houses of any house that's over 100 years old. So I told her we'd be all for it and whatever we can do. The problem with is if I tear those houses down, we can't rebuild a 100-year-old house again. They're not building 100-year-old houses anymore. They take 100 years to get there.
Additional questions for the applicant? Councilmember Chanda.
Thank you for the presentation. I like your the design, but I'm still struggling to decide why this should qualify for a PUD. I mean, I'm not seeing the criteria that's laid out there in terms of housing enhancement. Or I want to hear from you. Why do you think it should be a PUD?
If it's okay with you, I wouldn't mind taking a break for a few minutes. When I come back, I can present the whole PUD package of why it should be a PUD, if that's okay with the mayor and council.
It's outside of the process.
I'd like to get to the public comment.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think
Yeah.
my expectation is there may be additional things you want to respond to based on what public comment is. You've heard a lot of them speak in previous meetings. If there's consensus from council, I think it makes sense to let him take a seat, get on with the public comment, and then we'll continue. That make sense?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Couple things about public comment. I'll open the public hearing. Many of you have signed up to speak for E1. You're not required to sign up to actually speak, so if you'd like to speak, you'll just have to come forward after we've gone through the people who have signed up. Several of you, it looks like, have signed up both in E1 for the public hearing and also F public comment, F1. There's some duplicates. Some of you, I think, are signed up in F1 that aren't related to the PUD. If I don't call your name in this first section now, you're like I said, you're free to come up and speak regarding this matter. And so with that said, the rules, again, most of you, if not all of you, have either been to our planning commission meetings or have watched them on TV and know that it's not a back and forth conversation with us. It's you have 3 minutes. The timer's here. Please use your time judiciously. And I guess with that said, we'll start with Jeff Williams.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening to us. There are a number of PUDs in Troy that fit into the surrounding neighborhoods, and I don't think there's been much pushback on any of those. This corner is very unique, and I hope this turnout and response shows how much people care about this location. This PUD does not fit this area, and it's not by right. Our Save Troy Corners team spent a tremendous number of hours researching and meeting with experts to try and understand the current zoning ordinances, especially Section 1103, standards for approval. Excuse me. We put together a substantial PowerPoint presentation and devoted approximately 41 pages to this specifically. After all of this, we truly believe that unless you lower your standards on what qualifies for a PUD in the city of Troy, this does not qualify for a PUD. There are about 9 major standards in Section 1103 of the standard of the zoning ordinance that are the most critical. Number 1, does this mitigate impacts to traffic? It will increase it. All 33 units go right to Livernois. Number 2, consistent with the master plan. This PUD was never in the master plan before or the current one. Mixture of land uses, bless you. Mixture of land uses, I already cut, it's all residential. It's not a mix. Public improvement, 96% of the people in the surrounding neighborhoods do not see a benefit. Only 25% of the units in this proposal are single-story ranches, which we were told were supposed to be the most desirable. Material benefit. You couldn't take one of those units from this proposal, stick it into one of our surrounding neighborhoods, and say that it made an improvement. Number 6, protect natural resources or features. There's a lot more brick and cement in the PUD versus what's currently zoned. We believe that the higher density will have a greater impact on stormwater issues. 7, appropriate transition. This is a poor transition. Our houses in our Telford Ridge sub are 30 feet. We've measured them. They're 30 foot tall. Not the midline 30, they're 30 foot tall. And I believe they drop down to 20 foot to the ranch. And then I believe these condo blocks that are in the center of this are also 30 foot. So everything where it's getting measured in the middle, we're looking at the overall peak height. We believe it's going from 30, 20, 30, and then back to 24 with the retail and the commercial buildings that are closer to, Square Lake. 8, promote energy conservation. 33 families in the PUD versus 24 families in the current zoning. Are these innovative and creative? They're not. They just lack charm and uniqueness. They're just big, more boring, tall, blocky buildings with no flow. And to sum it up, I'd collectively like to state, we as a community want to keep the current zoning, the Plan B. We've been offered Plan B several times at the Telford Ridge HOA meetings and during the Planning Commission meetings. We humbly ask each of you to vote no on the PUD as your community sees no benefit at this location. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next, hey, whoa. There's a lot of you signed up, and no, you're fine.
Okay.
Our rules say no applause, so please don't applaud. It's just going to slow things down. I get it. You guys can do what you need to afterwards, but let's keep it flowing. Nanette Gearhart, please.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. We really appreciate it. My name is Nanette Gerhardt. I live at 6197 Livernois on the corner of Livernois and Aspinwall. I've lived in my house for 30 years. My house is 97 years old. I bought that house because it was in a very unique area of Troy, something that everybody wanted, that likes those type of homes. We appreciate the historic value. We appreciate the people have put in all the work and the time and effort to make these homes what they are. I have had so many people coming up to my house wanting to buy the house as is immediately. People are desiring from other communities want that type of housing. I feel this development is just not the place for that area. Please, I am begging you not to approve this. This is, we're adding, just trying to, you can't even make a left, trying to go north on Livernois from Aspinwall in the middle of the afternoon in the summer. I mean, it's nearly impossible. There's so much traffic. So number one, you need an independent study, or just drive the area and see what it's like. I don't work anymore, so but even in the middle of the day, it's almost nearly impossible. I end up going through the subdivision and going around just so I can go north on Livernois. There's no reason why those other older houses can't be fixed up and sold. And I hope that's what happens with those. Right now, they're deplorable. They look terrible. They're not kept up. There's people coming and going. The police have been parked across the street watching them. I don't know what's going on over there. This PUD has no historic preservation within this development. Also, I was not aware of the 2018 approval for the first set of housing that's going there on Square Lake. I don't know how that happened, but I think we look at this as a transparency issue. Again, I ask for your help and support on this.
Thank you, Ms. Gary. Well, please don't make me do the applause police. I know it takes a lot of work to come up here and a lot of courage, so we'll stay that. I recognize all of that. But next up is Deborah Luzecki.
Good evening. I was going to not speak a whole lot because I think I've spoke enough already, but I have some concerns. Number one, the neighborhood node issue. We have it shows in the pink, you saw it on there, which shows where the neighborhood node. He came up with something with a 1,000 feet radius, which encompasses all this property. There's been many times we've been in front of planning and asking, what size is our neighborhood node? We've been told it's 300 linear feet, where he just now says this project, and this is the first time I've heard it, and we've spent a ton of time trying to make sure that we understood what we were talking about so that we weren't just spreading things that were just thoughts. But we were told this was a 300-foot linear feet, but in the master plan, it does talk about 1,000 linear feet circle, but this is the first time we've ever seen that property was included in a neighborhood node section. So I think there's some transparency that needs to be done going forward on the rest of the neighborhood nodes, because if I've been digging and haven't been told this, then I think other people need to know this. Other than that, when the 14 stories, I love it. When the 3 stories, 14 units were approved, that was during the neighborhood node section. That was part of that. They didn't have to give notice, so people were not informed on that. So when this came up, the PUD came up, then they looked at everything that the developer's doing. We're pro-development, pro-developer. But the issue is that we feel that the density is just too much for what's going on that corner. And we feel that the single-family residential property, which is how we were told in the master plan is single-family, not part of a neighborhood node section, that could be used as in, God bless you, could be used as in single-family and maybe doing zero lot line, but putting more houses in there, but still would make the transition a little bit clearer. So with that, and as far as traffic studies, I'm not an expert, but we saw studies that showed 14,000, 15,000 a day. So on one day that the traffic study was done by Oakland County. So we do feel that development and also traffic and infrastructure can't be looked at in a vacuum. We're just asking for a vote for no. Thank you.
Thank you. Just quickly, I want to address something about the transparency issue. That bubble, I don't usually do this, but before we get too far into this, the bubble that you showed on the map for the neighborhood node, those are the same bubbles that are on all the neighborhood nodes, but that doesn't actually mean that those properties are zoned in that bubble. I think that's just an exemplar. Is that right?
That's correct. I had a slide that showed the bubble.
Yeah.
I think I called it a blob map. I indicated that it was conceptual only and that it was the same size circle as all the other nodes.
That's right.
It's
the node itself is not. The node, what's zoned node property is that one little section that's in the bottom. I think I didn't want to sit for the next hour and having that sit on me. But the node is what's zoned node, what you're aware of. So there's no additional node parcels. I can't have you ask a question. I've already gone out of process, but we'll continue. Next up is Stadia Turinge. Oh, Stadia.
Mr. Mayor, Council Member, my name is Sadia Shirigan. I live in this area, in this node. It's been 20 years now. I have, what can I say? I think we are here today because because of we had a bad experience earlier because of the condominiums that were built on the southwest side of Livernois, Square Lake. I drive there every morning and I hate them. All I see is cement. I don't see, and they're too close to the road. So when you see that, you're scared, between when you see on picture what is presented to you and the real what you're going to have in real time. So that's what scares me. Also, we're not here today to criticize the work of the plan, the master plan. I know it takes a lot of hours. I know it's like the plan, when you see it, the concept of the plan is excellent, but the thing is I don't think it belongs in this area. So it doesn't belong in this area, and what I don't understand is how come the zoning commission of Troy from the beginning, how did we end up like this, selling this land and having talking about this problem right now? We have, for me as a citizen, I live there, in this node, we have 4 schools. We have the kindergarten school, we have Martel Elementary School, we have Smith Middle School. On the north side, we have another elementary school. We have churches, it's crowded. The road is 45 miles per hour, and I think the accident, when you have a fast road like that, it's more than 70% chance of getting hit. So how many kids we have there? When I drive, I see the kids in Smith Middle School, like when they have half days. They have nothing to do, they walk to go to the other side in this node, to go to the subway to have food and to eat, and you see them just wandering there. They have no place where to go. It's heartbreaking as a mother when I see these kids going around. Like, if I feel like this zoning commission was supposed, like, if you know well the area, like we need maybe, I'm done? You're done. Okay, we need a mini park for the kids, okay? And I'm against the nod. Okay, thank you.
All right, next up is Lisa Williams. 3 minutes goes fast.
First of all, I would like to say thank you so much for serving our community, and thank you for letting us voice our concerns over this proposed PUD. A little nervous, sorry. I would like to address why I believe that granting a rezone request from R1B to a PUD for this area just does not fit. As a collective concern group, we have spent countless hours looking over this PUD request and scratching our heads as to why a rezone would be considered in this area, which is 98% R1B. But we are left with two plans submitted by the developer. One is the PUD that is asking for a total rehaul to what this area is zoned for in the master plan and in the zoning ordinance. The PUD calls into question concerns over stormwater, drainage, traffic lanes on Livernois Road increasing possibly, density within the development, only one access for residents to enter and exit the development, and a complete lack of flow within the development. It's back in, back out. These issues all fall under the standards, PUD standards for approval that need to be met, and then it can all be argued that they just don't meet the qualifications needed. The other plan that the developer submitted is by right. It would allow for approximately 10 single-family homes, and then the 2018 approved 14-unit condo development is only in the 1.1 acres in the neighborhood node section of the property. We don't like it, but it's approved. And it is a better fit for the area when all is said and done, for the total area. Let it also be stressed that this developer owns approximately 3.3 acres to the east of the PUD, the proposed PUD. So this will be phase one. There's more coming. In closing, to quote an article in the Troy Times from October 26, 2023, regarding updates to the master plan, Brent Savana hit the nail on the head when he said, all development is now fill-in development. Anything you put in will impact neighbors who are already there. We need to do a good job of reviewing applications and see how they will impact the community. I agree. And I can tell you that the people you are looking at in these seats are pleading with you to listen to what they are asking for and vote no on this PUD. Again, thank you so much for your openness to hear our concerns.
Thank you. I inadvertently skipped over Danielle Favre. Sorry, Danielle.
Hello. I'll be quick. I've lived at Square Lake in Livernois for 28 years, and I could go on at length how much I love Troy, but I'll quickly get to the point. I oppose the PUD, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to our concerns. I think this is a single-family residential area, and it doesn't fit there. I don't feel confident listening to the assessments of the impact on the water and the sewer and the traffic that's there. I implore you to improve the lowest density building possible, whatever option is possible. The appeal of Troy in that area is there's a lot of green space, there's nature, there's animals. It's really a beautiful area. and I just don't think the PUD fits. From a layman's perspective, it's a hodgepodge of a lot of different buildings, and you're just dropping them into an area that's not congruent with the rest of that. So thank you for listening. Thank you for all the work you do. We love Troy.
Thank you. Next up is Dr. Diane Slager.
And like others, thank you all so much for your time and service, and to you for your presentations as well. I am not a long-established resident here. I just moved here a year ago. I moved here, I and my husband moved here because we liked the wide open spaces and the large yards and the lovely green spaces. So as a resident of the only through street between Livernois and Rochester and between Square Lake and South, I anticipate that traffic will increase if homes are built, especially multifamily homes. And so, and I too have some issues with a national trip generation tool that probably doesn't account for all the driving. I mean, every house has at least, they have 2 stall garages and there's 4 cars in the driveway. So I don't know where you only get 20 rides from 33 new places. But I would propose that the developer I would respectfully request that another traffic study would be done, an actual study done, not just a reference to a national source. And then I would also respectfully propose that the developer pay for installation of speed bumps on East Level, because the traffic, like now with Rochester, you know, down to 1 lane, we have so much more traffic. So those are 2 concerns of mine. And then an additional one is water issues. When we moved here, we did not know that we were getting waterfront property, but it's nice to tell our friends that we bought waterfront property. But in light of the recent water, and I assume unanticipated water issues on Livernois, I think that, again, I have real concerns about the capacity of that detention pond. We didn't hear what the capacity was, and hope that a civil engineering evaluation is conducted thoroughly. So thank you so much for your time, and I too would oppose the existing plan and ask you to as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Next up is Walt Storrs.
Good evening, Mayor Baker, members of the Troy City Council. You probably recognize me as the water boy of Sylvan Glen Subdivision number 3 by now. And I would like to see a comprehensive stormwater study of the area west of 19 and Livernois and north of there, just to see where all this water is going. That was going to be part of that beer drinking discussion I offered last time I was here. But on this particular matter, I see no benefit, no long-term benefit to the citizens of Troy and the future citizens of Troy of this density. I mean, the southeast of 19 and Livernois and the southeast of Rochester and 18 Mile, I just don't see the long-term benefit to the citizens, current citizens, and future citizens of Troy. So, thank you.
Next up is David Schaffer.
My name's David Schaefer. I live in Sylvan Glen, 5661 Folkestone. I've lived there since 1974, and our house sits right on what used to be Big Beaver Creek. Big Beaver Creek used to run between our house and the neighbor's house, and Mother Nature still thinks it kind of does. So any extra water off of the Smith Middle School particularly, because that is a 100-year floodplain over there, the playground area, Smith Middle School does not sit in that. And we talked with the people building the new Smith Middle School, and they claim that it will not impact any additional water in our area, but it won't help it. So we're just concerned that the runoff, we're downstream from this new development. I did see there is a retention basin, which is good. Hopefully that is adequate. Presently, like in my front yard, I have a fire hydrant, and almost every summer the fire hydrant is almost buried in water because folks don't, I'm at the low point. And also on either side of the street, just down from my house, there are 2 storm drains and 2 storm drains in the curb. And those are not plugged. I also have a catch basin in my backyard. Those don't get plugged too often. We watch them closely, but it's just the fact that all the water just can't get out of there fast enough. So my whole backyard floods over. Fortunately, I have the glass block windows in my basement, because if I wouldn't, the water has come up on them almost that far in the past. So like Walt suggested, I live behind Walt's stores. His front yard is in the 100-year floodplain, if you look at the map of Troy. And so our concern is just to make sure that that retention basin is adequate, and any additional, because they have hardscapes over there. He pointed out the sidewalks, a lot of nice sidewalks. I like development, by the way. I participated in probably developing about 100,000 houses in my previous business, and so I kind of like it. But this one here kind of is not consistent with the area either. We got what could have been a nice little historical area, and it's kind of getting blown up with items that don't fit there. We could have had a little Franklin Village, but now we have a leftover Troy and different types of things. But our concern, just make sure that the retention basin and water stays where it should be. Take care.
Next up is Mary Reddig.
Good evening. Thank you for your time in serving the city. I am a new resident as well, too. About 3.5 years, I think, we found our nice ranch house on an acre. And we moved north from Berkeley because of the overbuilding, the high density, what do they call them, Bigfoots, the water flowing into the neighbors' yards, you know, you name it, we dealt with it. And when we started stalking Troy and finding these beautiful neighborhoods with an acre, we literally, let's go take a ride, let's see if there's any houses. Well, there were never any houses for sale. I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor for 28 years, and we discovered this beautiful neighborhood up here. So we started looking, and when they hit, we were up here looking at them. And luckily, we found one. And then when I heard about this development going on this corner, I thought, you got to be kidding me. No. I know more than anybody else, there's a housing problem. Housing affordability, lack of housing, everything else. So I just hate to see the density built on this corner. It's so refreshing to drive up Livernois and come home and see the open space. But if something like this is going to be built, it's going to take me longer to get up Livernois, because you can't tell me this traffic study is correct. I just don't believe this. And, you know, in all fairness, just doing some math here, I just can't believe that only 2/3 of the people leave their house in the morning, but maybe with more people working at home. Anyways, I would please ask you to vote no on this development and this change in zoning. And if you have to vote yes, I see some of the things that on that plan, the trees that he's going to add, they're going to block your view when you're trying to turn out onto Livernois. So again, you can't tell me there's not going to be traffic problems on Livernois. So I support my neighbors that have been here longer, and I appreciate your time in looking at this and hearing all of us, because it is a big concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick. Next up is Ann Coleman.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much for your service. I'm laughing because my neighbors are funny, and we've really learned a lot together and grown a lot together in this process. Number one, I just want to make some points. Oh, I live at 6091 Livernois. My house is the little yellow house that's directly across. I sit on my porch in my rocking chair, drink my coffee or tea, and look at the older homes across the street. I want to start off by pointing out that all of the PUDs that were presented tonight were on 5-lane wide roads or wider. I don't understand how someone would say that traffic changes would be imperceptible, because they are perceptible to me right now. With the construction on Rochester Road, people are coming down Livernois, and I experience traffic on Sundays and Saturdays that's like rush hour traffic on Monday through Thursday currently. I called and spoke with the representative, because Livernois is owned by the county, and I talked with a representative of the Oakland County Road Commission, and he explained to me that it's a 4-year process from the point of applying to widening the road, or even starting to widen a road. So if we do develop traffic difficulties with the building of the schools, et cetera, it'll be 4 years of traffic problems before it's even begun to be addressed. Part of what hasn't been mentioned tonight about the traffic is that there is development and residential building going up at Auburn, in Rochester Hills at Auburn and Livernois. That traffic is going to add. And as someone else spoke to, there's going to be more building. There's more new development coming in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lastly, impact water. Water. On July 18th, Oakland County Road Commission was working on the drain that crosses underneath Livernois Road. In late morning, I saw them there. By 4 o'clock, water started filling my backyard. Now, when it rains, my backyard gets flooded to the point that I have at least this much water, and I use a trash pump to pump it out every time. For it to have not rained for several days, and for that water to start rising in my yard and there's something going on there. They did something that's rerouted water, or I don't know what's going on. But twice now, it's not rained at all, and water has filled my backyard. I think that's everything I wanted to say. Oh, creativity. I don't understand how we need to use creativity as an argument for open land. I thought that was for transitioning. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, please, I support residential, or R1B. I support R1B. I want to be clear about that.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Next up is Dale Murish.
Most of my comments are directed to other topics.
Okay, so,
I yield to all the people that...
all right, Dale, we'll move you down to the, if they're on agenda, then we'll move it down there. Just, City Clerk Dixon, will you remind me if I forget? Thank you. I somehow screwed up my screen. Hold on one second. Brenda, is it Brenda Nolan? Brendan, sorry, I cut off names. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Hi. I guess I live just a little bit west of this proposed development. And I guess my big concern, so I have 2 boys that are going to be graduate. One is already graduated, one's going to be leaving the Troy school system. But housing, as everyone knows, is an issue. It's an issue nationwide. And so as a resident of Troy, what I'm looking at in the future is, how do we get more residents to Troy, right? You have to have a mix of housing, right? A lot of arguments, it's a single family, but you need people to come to Troy. MLive just did a study. They crunched the numbers from the national number thing, and Troy lost population. A lot of the cities that lost population were cities that had a very expensive single-family dwellings. So I guess maybe it's a little apart from this particular, but I think the city of Troy needs to address it. How do we bring more affordable housing into Troy? Where is it going to go? But if it's always enmeshed in these not in my backyard arguments, we got to put these housing somewhere. Where is it going to go? Right? And I think a lot of this housing that has been done has been tasteful. The new development that everyone is arguing about at Pepe's, I live right around the corner from there. I have not noticed a huge impact with traffic. And there does seem to be a bias, I think, with multifamily dwellings, in my opinion. But I just think that the city of Troy needs to look at how housing is developed and how we bring more residents into Troy. If people can't afford to come to Troy, people are not going to be in Troy, they're not going to be in our school systems, they're not going to be paying taxes. So we need residents into Troy, and that means mixed housing. That means housing that's affordable, and you have housing that if you have more money, you can buy those, but you have to have a mix. You have to have a balance, and that's how you're going to get people to come to Troy. Because otherwise, what's going to happen, they're going to move out. They're going to move out, and they're going to go to these cheaper places, and that's going to hollow out. It's historical, right? You see it in all these cities. You keep moving further out, further out, further out. If you develop properly, you can kind of keep those residents, bring more residents in, and then you make it a destination place. You don't make it exclusionary that if you only have a certain amount of wealth that you're able to actually live in Troy. Thank you.
Next up is Bill Rhodes. Didn't see Bill. I don't know why you're signed up here, Bill. Are you signed up later?
I didn't think I signed up for speaking.
Okay, well, good to see you, nevertheless. Just saved us 3 minutes. There you go. How about Marcia Bossenberger? I bet she wants to speak. That was kind of
Good evening. Thanks for doing all that you do to make this city awesome. I always never know exactly what I'm going to talk about until after I hear everybody. But one thing that I wanted to talk about and bring up again, that the answer was never given to me in the planning meetings previously, was in 2018, when the townhouses were approved behind John's Market, there was access to Square Lake. For some reason, those 14 townhomes, you had access to Square Lake. But now, for this PUD development, you have an EVA, an emergency vehicle access. Why can't we have access to what's changing? But when you look at the plan also, there's a parking lot that kind of goes towards the two lots to the east, but there's no transparency. I think that's what I want the most out of this developer, is transparency. Is he developing to those two lots? Is he gonna put, I think it was, 2.5 acres worth? Is he gonna put 14, 18, 20 townhomes on those lots? I need transparency. In my experience with this developer, in our experience with this developer, especially for Ottawa, we did not have transparency when the homeowner went to sell her house. He switched it from purchasing it as a homeowner at the very last minute to a developer. We really need transparency. Is he building on those two lots? What is his ultimate goal? There is no guarantee this complex will not flood the neighbors and the adjoining neighbors. When you look at Peacock and Ottawa, that retention pond flooded a foot over Peacock Street into the neighbor's house once again. The retention pond did not just flood over Peacock Street, it went and flooded on the opposite end towards Rochester Road. That's not even within the flood zone. There's been lots of photos taken, lots of video. And this complex will adjoin the flood zone according to Eagle Maps. The townhouses in 2018.
Marcia, that's your 3 minutes.
Oh, shoot.
Can you wrap it up in 20 seconds if I get consensus from council
Sure.
for 20 seconds? 20 seconds.
Okay, the townhouses in 22, correct. Gary, we don't like 3-story townhomes, but with your 4 extensions, you plan on building them anyways. To quote you, yes, they won't look cool.
Thank you. Next up is Stephanie Height.
2 minutes. 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 2
is a boy mom.
I am a boy mom. I'm a boy mom who moved here 7 years ago from Berkeley because of the fact that we didn't like being on each other. So our neighborhood is very unique in the fact that we have half acres, 2 acre lots. That's why you move somewhere else. I feel like the PUD doesn't fit in with the area. If you look at the surrounding neighborhoods, they all have larger lots, places for our kids to play. We may not have sidewalks or streetlights, but it's also one of the reasons why we absolutely love where we are, because you can come in off of Rochester or off of Livernois and literally feel like you're in the country. There aren't a lot of places like that left in Troy. And if you consider turning this into a PUD, the current zoning could still have that and still offer that to families that are desperately looking for that land in that area. Nobody wants to be taking a shower and looking out their window at their neighbor washing their hair. I mean, you get it. So that's one concern. It doesn't fit with the rest of the neighborhood. The traffic, it wasn't a study. I have a feeling might have been done during COVID when like no one was going anywhere, because Livernois in the morning, when you've got Smith going into school and you have Woodland Elementary entering school, Livernois is backed all the way up. I'm a resident on Montclair that connects to Booth. I have cars driving 60 miles an hour in the morning down my street. I've called the police, they put out signs. There's nothing that they can do. We've had 2 stop signs put in. That doesn't slow people down. It's just gonna create more traffic. Anytime you replace nature with concrete, you're gonna have more issues. There's less trees, there's less openness. The animals, I have 4 deer that are in my backyard constantly, a woodchuck, 2 foxes. Again, we move a little bit further north for the openness, and I think this development will take it away. He can still accomplish what he wants to do. He wants to build $350,000 to $600,000 homes. He can still do that with having single-family resident homes. And also $550,000 is not a starting home. Anybody who's trying to say we need more starter homes, that's not a starter home for anyone coming out of college. And if you do, for some reason, decide to move forward and approve the PUD, I would ask for the consideration of an exit off of not South Boulevard, but Square Lake, and a community area, an actual community area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jennifer Gilly.
Thank you, guys. So I too moved here from Royal Oak, so I was friends with Stephanie. It took us 5 years to find a home in this neighborhood. We chose this area because of the big yards, the big lots, the community within our area. My biggest concern is really the safety of my child. If Gary continues to build, his plan with the 400 Ottawa, connecting it into our neighborhood, would just make it where everybody's passing through. I ride bikes with all of the neighborhood kids, and I'm constantly just making sure everybody is safe, and that's what we want, is the safety of our children. Also, my concern too is the infrastructure. I was just taking pictures of my backyard just as it rained over the last few weeks, and it is a lake. My yard, my neighbor behind me's yard, my neighbor next to me. So we can't handle the development with this density. So we ask that you say no to this PUD.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes those that have signed up specifically under E1, but like I said, there's some of you signed up in another section that may have meant to sign here, and it's a public hearing, so you don't have to sign up. So take it one at a time, come on up. Rush this podium, it's fine. Just state your name, please.
Good evening. My name's Eileen Gallahue. I am a resident of Troy on Somerton Avenue. And I want to give some perspective of maybe some historic PUD issues, some successes, maybe some not so good successes. But along Long Lake Road, north of Long Lake, between Falmouth and Hertford, there's a street called Westminster Avenue, and that was initially proposed as a much more dense PUD, I think in 2017, 2018. And our neighborhood was successful on trying to help reduce that density, even though right now the density has, I think, 12 or 13 homes on that 5 acres, which brings it to a little bit more than 2.4 homes per acre. Maybe I'm a little wrong on my math, but it is a much less dense than the current building proposal in this area. So I'm advocating for the people in this area of Troy that we shouldn't accept a more dense area than this, because even with this lower density PUD that was proposed, the retention pond there along Long Lake has constant water, higher water than we ever saw prior to this development being built. And in the areas around these homes, butting up to some good friends of mine, they are constantly walking on soaking water in their backyard, which was never there previously. So for future, because I'm an engineer, not a civil engineer, I do believe it is imperative for the city to understand the water studies, the percolation, the amount of sand clay mixture in these areas. And I really think that should drive the water concerns of the neighbors, because this, when you're talking a 100-year event, it means it's a 1% chance any 1 year for a flood event to happen. Whereas we all know right now, even in, I think it was 2015, 4 inches of rain in one day that had led to big flooding in other areas. And I think this year, one of our highest inch accumulations was 2 inches in a day. Don't quote me on that, but it was very close. These water issues are the most troublesome for all of us in our homes. And I don't know what the answer is, but I do believe some more science behind studying the water issues is imperative for every developer moving forward in Troy. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Just come on up. Thank you. Stack up in the front row so we don't have to wait for the interim. How about that?
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name's Kurt Meyer, and I live on Elmore and Glenmore subdivision. I've lived there for 31 years. I have taken Aspinwall and turned on Livernois for 29 years to go to my office, which is in Troy at Livernois and Long Lake. So you could say I'm a Troy supporter. I'm totally impressed by the intelligent comments that the people here have made today, my fellow citizens and neighbors. But I want to talk about something a little different, and that is your legacy. 38 years ago, I became a lawyer, and I used to sit in Lori's seat for another city. And I can tell you, I understand what you do and the challenges you face. I sat on the Zoning Board of Appeals as counsel, and I can tell you right now, this does not fit the character of the neighborhood. We live in our neighborhoods because there are no sidewalks. We live in our neighborhoods because there are no streetlights. We live in our neighborhoods because there are large plots of land that we live on. When I first came in law school, PUDs were just being developed as a concept. Their idea was to basically make them a node. Sounds familiar. Residential, commercial, professional. That is not in this PUD whatsoever. And so the question I pose for you is a question somebody else, the first speaker, did. If you pass this, you are diluting the concept of a PUD. And what you're saying is that what was said by Mr. Sullivan at the beginning, I was a little disturbed. Developer wants flexibility, city wants predictability. You negotiate. What I got from that is the PUD was going to be approved. It just had to be on conditions that the city agreed to, not necessarily what a PUD is supposed to be. And that was troubling. The comment about transparency, that plays into the same role. My problem, when I sat here, was, does the developer have options? Does he own those other properties? Why is there, I thought your questions, Councilmember Brooks and Chamberlain, were excellent. Why is there no outlet on Square Lake? Because of the runoff. They had to put in a detention pond. Oh, and where's that green space? Most of it is the detention pond. And that detention pond will face Square Lake. What a beautiful thing to look at. He could build single-family homes. He could be 1 RB, but he's not. In fact, he exceeds 1 RE density. So this is more than just a PUD. This is a money grab. And these standards, quite honestly, are so speculative and so non-objective. I could make an argument to build a PUD in my neighborhood because there are vacant lots large enough to do it. Why wouldn't it be granted? Doesn't fit the character of my neighborhood, and neither does this project. Thank you.
Hi, I'm not sure you're going to beat that. My name is John Malott. I'm the one who submitted the petition, and thank you, Brent, for putting it up on the screen and showing the adjacent properties and the affected property owners. And some of those people are affected fairly significantly, and that's important, okay? But there's also a lot of other people that are affected as well. And I just want to share with you some statistics from that petition that I did. I went door to door, okay? I didn't do all of the signatures, but I spoke to over 100 people. Almost 90% signed the petition. They don't want the PUD. And I made sure that I kept it within the adjacent areas, so I didn't go any farther than 1,200 feet. One person said they were in favor of it. One. A few said they were against it, or I'm sorry, a few said they had nothing against it. 2 or 3 said they did not want it, but they didn't want to sign. And a few said they didn't know enough about it to sign. All told, 92 signed, okay? Over 90% of the people I spoke to. In total, 140 people signed that petition. And many of the people that are here tonight that I'm hearing speak, I didn't talk to. So I'm not sure if somebody else talked to them and they signed the petition, but I'm not sure they did or they didn't. So I did not speak to any of the business owners that are adjacent. I tried to get a hold of a couple of them. They didn't return my calls. The other 2 I didn't speak to at all. There was a couple of homes that are adjacent that I did not talk to because I couldn't get a hold of them. One of them didn't answer the door, and the other one rents the property, and I could never get a hold of them. Of those adjacent property owners that you saw up there, 8 of the 12 that I spoke to signed the petition, and one of them actually signed it previously, but I couldn't get a hold of them this time because I wanted to make sure that those adjacent signatures were recent, okay? That's about it. You know, the petition in my mind speaks volumes, so I just want to let you know. Thank you.
Mr. Millat. Appreciate it. He's been waiting. He was one of the first to jump up. Do you mind if you guys?
He asked me to go.
Oh, you go. I mean,
she permitted me. Yeah, thank
all
you.
right.
So good evening and thanks, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. My name is Ramaya Kumar. I popularly go by RV. This is my very first public appearance and speech in this country. So thank you for that. So let me go very fast. I am in a sort of a very emotional, elegiac and even very reflective mood today. 40 years back or 45 years back when I was a kid, I know what my village was. So many trees, fantastic lakes. We all used to play and we had a nice river. We all used to go to swim. But today, if you go there, all that I find is all parched land. All the lakes have been taken over by land grabbers and politicians who have built houses, concrete jungle. The river is dry, making it an excellent place for kids to play cricket. India, everybody plays cricket. So that is the situation today. Even cattle do not have anything to feed them. And moreover, the pathetic thing is, People have to stand for long hours in the blazing hot sun of deep South India, waiting for a pot of water to be delivered by the government drinking water truck. I don't want somebody 40 years in the future talking about Troy like this in some other city of the world. Thank you very much. That's the first point. The second thing is, whatever I say is not based on my pedantic knowledge, but based on my visit, not to brag about, but I've been around, worked, lived, and traveled across 39 countries in the world. There are a lot of smaller countries in Europe, even in Eastern Europe, which was under communist rule, where there was a rule that if you cut one tree, you have to plant two trees. If you don't do that, the punishment used to be very severe. Here we have a free-for-all. I have come to Troy about 21 years ago, and I find indiscriminate felling of trees, and everywhere I see a lot of buildings are coming up. People talk about something which was approved 5 or 6 years back. Because something was approved and a mistake was made, there is no need to perpetuate that mistake forever. I would be very surprised if in a very scientific community like Troy, we go and we want to approve something like this. And in my opinion, people spoke about flooding and, of course, traffic. Who will be responsible if the traffic grows too high and 60 miles per hour the cars are driven, and if some children are hit? Who will take the responsibility for that? What about the flooding? If flooding goes up, naturally insurance costs will go up. Who will take the responsibility of the insurance costs? I want to know all these things. And in my opinion, this is not a PUD or not a development. Indiscriminate felling of trees and building concrete jungles and then trying to deplete the oxygen layer is not development, but it is nothing but slow arsenic poisoning of a city. I'm sorry to use explosive language. And one last thing, when I was a little kid in my country, I heard about, we all read about Lincoln and the famous sentence or phrase, of the people, by the people, and for the people is democracy. So be it. Let it not be of the people, for the people, and of the people, by the people, and for the corporations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have one more. Is anyone going to go after? Just so I know. All right, you're it.
Hello.
Oh, no, you're not it.
Oh,
So.
just kidding. No, that's fine. I will be short and sweet. As a mom in the neighborhood.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. My name's Leah Kello. I live on Lovell, which is the only through street between Livernois and Rochester, and let me tell you, it is not 25 miles an hour. Not my finest moment. Yesterday, I nearly threw 3 pounds of coffee at a car going about 60 miles an hour down my street. So the fact that this will add a significant amount of drivers, I think whatever book we used to assess traffic, we should do like the thing where we test how fast cars actually go, would probably be more beneficial to this situation. But yeah, as a mom in the neighborhood, I moved from Seattle to Troy for big lots, for slow streets, and this is the third time I've had to talk in front of the city about slowing traffic down. And what they told me in 2018 was that we don't believe in speed bumps because it slows down fire trucks. And as somebody who is the victim of 2 house fires, slow the freaking trucks down because it'll also slow the traffic down. So the fact that PUD housing is going to add more than just your normal level of single-family homes. I am not opposed to putting houses in this area. I agree. I think it's great to have more people coming into Troy, but I think putting in PUD housing in this is a slippery slope due to the fact that this gentleman owns so much property in the area that he is already talking about connecting. And if we approve PUD for this, then we're going to probably approve PUD for the other areas. And that is, so what I'm doing right now is talking about the future. I understand we are talking about this one development, and your drawings are beautiful. I think you've put a lot of hard work into it, but the reason why you're fighting so hard for PUD in this right now, sir, is so that you can get PUD in all the other lots that you own. And that, as a mom of a small child who already has to cross Livernois where people are flying to get to school, the last thing I want is more cars, more traffic, and putting in, 417 trees? That's just going to obstruct a lot of view. Somebody said that as turning out. You already, even getting to this meeting at 7 o'clock at night took me 5 minutes to turn out of my street onto Livernois. The traffic is insane. So the book you used, with all due respect, is crap. I would recommend that you do an actual traffic study. The city's already put a ton of money into this. This gentleman has already put a ton of money into the plan. It's not, he's fighting so hard for this PUD to get other PUDs approved. So it is a slippery slope, and I don't think we should do it. So I advocate for you to vote no. Thank you.
All right. Next.
Hi, thank you, everybody, for your hard work. And my name is Shelley Stenger. I live on Hearst, East Hearst, and I just wanted to add a couple things. I love what everybody is saying. It's really thoughtful, and there's a lot of work that's gone into that as well. Traffic is already really bad. I've been a resident off and on for 62 years. All my life, I was born in my house where my dad built on Hearst. And it's just gotten really bad. Just coming down north on Livernois from Kroger takes a lot more time now than it used to, because you're sitting in front of Martell in the middle of the day, not even traffic time. So I think the traffic is a major issue, as well as the water. In 62 years, we never used to have a flooded backyard, and now our backyard floods in the recent few years, and first time we've had water in our basement. And that's scary when things like that start to happen. And it's flooding in more areas of the backyard. So, and I've looked online, there's some other residents that had major flooding in their yards, worse than mine. So we're all very concerned with this, just in general. And I think it'll get a lot worse the more housing we put in. Single family is great. I think multifamily is great in other locations, not in this node. This is not the node for, this is not the historical Troy that we know and love. And I think we have a lot, I don't even know anything about the offices that have been vacated. Maybe we can do something with those. I only have 58 seconds. So I think, yes, we need to bring people into Troy, but not at this corner. That is not a good plan. I really hope that everybody will vote no on this. And I thank you for listening, and have a great evening. Thanks.
Anyone else like to speak in public comment or public hearing? Come on up. Make sure you state your name, please.
Thank you for all your services. I'm Helen Chonich. I live in Sylvan Glen 3, right off of Square Lake, behind the golf course. And the thing is, I have to go to work off of Long Lake. I have to cut through my subdivision to come out past the fire hall over there, because I cannot come out at Square Lake and Donaldson and make the turn onto Livernois to go south. So I don't understand how they're going to put 33 units, let's say even one car per household. How are these people going to leave to go to work or take their kids to school and try to make a left? Because that's where the schools are, on the left. How are they ever going to get out? The only way I make it out of that side street past the fire station is that the school buses block the road down there, and I'm able to get out. Otherwise, I don't even know how this group that's going to be in this overpopulated residential subdivision that they're building are going to even be able to move around. And that's it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else? Last chance. All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing. We did give consensus to have Mr. Eberthera come forward and give some additional information about the PUD standards. I'll ask that you give us the Reader's Digest version as best as you feel comfortable, but recognizing that you have that opportunity. So,
before I do that, I'd like to ask if you would like to bring, I noticed the city engineer was here. If you'd like to have him come up and speak about all the flooding, because he's the expert in the city on flooding and what goes on. If you'd like to have him come up to talk, because everybody's concerned today 90% was flooding. Their houses are flooding, their streets are flooding, infrastructure.
I have an opportunity for some questions. I'll let you go ahead and do what you were planning to do
Okay.
first, and then we'll address that
Okay,
as a body.
sounds good. Excuse me 1 second. I would like to talk about 11.03 standards for approval for a PUD. A planned unit development project may be applied for in any zoning district. In order to be considered for the planned unit development option, it should be demonstrated that the following standards will be met as reasonably applicable to the site. A, the proposed development shall be applied for by a person or entity who has the legal right to execute a binding agreement covering all parcels in the PUD. The applicant shall demonstrate that through the use of the PUD option, the development will accomplish a sufficient number of following objectives as are reasonably applicable to the site. Number one, a mixture of land uses that would otherwise not be permitted without the use of a PUD, that other objectives of this article are also met. The proposed development will contain a variety of housing styles, including four single-family ranches, 5 duplexes, as well as 18 two-story condos. This blend of homes will promote community, which is not occurring in the space currently, in addition to saving 3 old homes on the land. This PUD would be a unique addition to Troy because the PUD is the only zoning that allows a variety of housing styles. That was the number one, and I think I meet the number one spot on that. Number two, a public improvement or public facility, as in recreational, transportation, safety, and security, which will enhance, add to, or replace those provided by public entities, thereby furthering the public health, safety, and welfare. In addition to the housing units, the proposed development will include recreational facilities such as sports court, putting green, and seating areas. These additions to the property will enhance the property and encourage residents to be active and interactive, thus improving living conditions and overall public welfare. I feel I hit number 2 is check that box. Number 3, a recognizable and material benefit to the ultimate users of the project and to the community where such benefits would otherwise be infeasible or unlikely to be achieved absent of these regulations. The aforementioned sports court, putting green, and seating areas will provide a direct benefit to the ultimate users of the project, as is the residents. Additionally, 3 homes will be left standing, which will preserve the historic charm of the area while also bringing new benefits the space does not currently have. Most importantly, we will supply the missing middle in Troy housing by building 8 ranch units for empty nesters. Looking to downsize while still living in Troy, in addition to the 22 two-story condos. I have in my PUD, I have low-scale, single-family product. Number 4, long-term protection and preservation of natural resources, natural features, and historic and cultural resources of a significant quantity and/or quality in need of protection or preservation, and which would otherwise be unfeasible or unlikely to be achieved absent of these regulations. It is highly important to remember the importance of preserving the history of our city on one of the most historic crossroads and by saving the Livernois homes that were built in the 1916s. The history of this area will be maintained. These houses are not currently on the historic protection list and thus could all be demolished, though we are taking steps to preserve and protect them with this PUD. So I've read off the first 4. Does anybody have any questions on the first 4 to see if those, in your opinion, meet the PUD standards?
I don't think it's going to work like that. I'll be honest. We're not.
Okay.
We'll have an opportunity to speak. But let me ask you this. I'm going to narrow it down a little bit. I don't believe that you're going to try to say that all your project meets all 18 standards.
I do not.
Okay. So can you highlight the couple that you have left? Because Mr. Chanda did ask a question of how you feel it really. So hit us with your strongest ones, Mr. Abbott.
A compatible mixture of open space, landscaped areas, and pedestrian amenities. Yes, we have 26% of the property set aside as green space. We'll be building pathways to easy access for residents to go to other parts of the city and then to the convenience stores, sub shop, carry-out bakery, sandwich shop, and hairdressers. Do not think that one is a great one. Design features and techniques such as green building, low-impact design will promote and encourage energy conservation. Measures will be taken to ensure more green and sustainable building process. Water filtration systems will be included in the site. Additionally, the preservation of 3 historic homes is sustainable as it keeps history alive and conserves energy. In these older homes in here, we're going to be putting energy-efficient furnaces, on-demand hot water tanks, LED lights, and EV chargers for the sustainability. Number 8 is not one that we meet. The PUD will reasonably mitigate impact to the transportation system and enhance non-motorized facilities and amenities. Nearby businesses will be easily reachable on foot from the PUD, for it will add walkable routes to these places. Likewise, the proposed development will not hinder any current walking paths or measures of transportation. Number 11, for the appropriate assembly, use, redevelopment, replacement, and/or improvement of existing sites that are occupied by obsolete uses and other structures. We will only be removing 1 of the old homes and keeping 3 of the old homes on its site and installing up-to-date energy-efficient components to it. Number 12, a complementary variety of housing types as in harmony with adjacent uses. The proposed development will have a wide variety of housing. We're going to have 3 existing homes, ranches, 2 stories, and they are all low scale and single family. And our tallest houses are going to be abutted up against the existing office buildings, not against residential that's existing there. Number 14, development consists with and meeting the intent of this article to promote the intent of the master plan or intent of any applicable corridor or sub-area plans. The master plan talks of finding and creating the missing middle in Troy, which we will be building in the proposed development. It also states that development in this area should be especially consider the remaining historic assets of the neighborhood, which are doing by preserving the old homes. 15 is include all necessary information with the height, structures, density, parking, circulation, landscaping for the whole thing in there. And we are putting the bulk placement of material of the construction on the proposed structures and other site improvements. In an effort to cooperate with the current residents in the next door neighborhood, we're putting all ranches against their property. We aren't putting anything 2-story against the existing 2 stories. We're keeping separation between the neighborhoods and maintaining the open feeling for the current residents. Location, screening of vehicle circulation. We're putting 379 trees, or however many that was in there, to landscape everything. Same with the parking areas, be landscaped by trees. The sports court and putting green will have trees meant to screen the areas from existing residents. There is nothing about hours of operation. Those were probably those are the biggest things I have on PUD. Actually, number 17, innovative methods of stormwater management that enhance water quality shall be considered in the design of the stormwater system. We're installing water filtration systems that will be installed. There will be a detention pond size for the site of a 100-year flood to help mitigate possible flooding of stormwater. And number 18 is, development will be with all applicable federal, state, and local law and ordinances. So those are the 18 that I rattled off, and I think I meet a large majority of them. Is there any questions you have for me?
Final comments for you? Final comments.
I'm sorry?
Final comments?
No. Stephen, can you put the screen, the laser pointer back up to this? Can I go back to my PowerPoint there? I just want to point a few things out.
Can you do it in 2 minutes?
I can do it in 2.5.
2.5 minutes.
As soon as you can you go back to the front? Can you put up a?
I can't. Can you do it without the PowerPoint?
I can try. So in my project, whether I build 10 new homes or the PUD, the street is going to be where the street's going to be going onto Livernois. It's not going to change any direction it goes. I feel people want to save the old homes. I hear lots of letters come in there, and they want to save the old homes. I don't think people want the 3-story, and if you look at it, there he has it up there. This street is going to come in no matter what. Whether it be 10 homes in here or the PUD, it's coming in right there. Having 2 points of access instead of an EVA is all we're going to do is create cut-through traffic going through here. Telford is 21, 22 houses. It has a single access also. It doesn't even have an EVA where we have an EVA saving what we have here. When this is finished, people in Telford are still going to be exactly their quiet neighborhood with nobody driving through it. We aren't driving through their subdivision. We're not doing anything in there. These 6 houses or 5 houses here are the most impacted, and they're having ranch units in their backyard. They're not having 4,000 or 5,000 square foot houses. Imagine this house and this house being 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, and this person right here looking at those 2 large houses. I mean, they won't see the sun till noon. So our impact of doing this, the people that live on Livernois over here, they're going to see the same thing they've been seeing for the last 70 years. 3 old houses. There's going to be now a road right here, but landscaping trees right here. They're not going to see any of this back here. The people that live along Square Lake over here, they're now, instead of seeing 3-story buildings here, they're going to be another 200 feet back before they see their first 2-story building. So it's improving what people drive down here and see. It's improving what these people see the same thing they always have. The people that live up here on Hearst and Lovell, they're still going to have their acre lots. They're still going to have their deer in their backyard. They're still going to have everything they have right now. We're not affecting anything up in this area. As far as cars coming out of here, zipping up Livernois and doing 60 miles an hour down Lovell, I don't think it matters if it's a PUD or the 10 homes that are going in there. I have no control over that, and nobody does. The only one that's going to stop it is going to be the police. So, as I was stating, the people most affected, I feel, are these 5 right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're all going to have ranch units in their backyard. I feel my product is better for them. I do have a letter from the one gentleman here that would like to see a ranch in his backyard rather than a 30-foot tall house. And I think I put that in your packet in there, if you could see that. So when it comes down to it, is this right here, these 8 ranch units, better than the 10 big 4,000 square foot houses? And is this right here better than the 3 stories that are going to go up there? And from listening to people that wrote in letters and some talk, they don't want 3-story units. And we're down to 2-story over into here. As far as developing anything over here as condos, I'm having enough problem with this project right here by negotiating, and that's what our PUD is, by removing 3 units here and saving these old homes here. There's nothing that would allow you to build anything over here. You have nothing in the book that would be a good reason to have a PUD extended down there, especially when you have the street right here with a dead end right here for future development of residential houses coming down. On the end of Telford Drive, there's a barricade that will be removed, and the road will continue through all the way down to Square Lake. So those are my points. Is I feel when this PUD is done, nothing's going to be changed for people that live over here. Like Mrs. Gearhart here, she has a 100-year-old house. We're still going to keep 100-year-old houses here. I'm not sure she quite understands if we get denied, they're getting torn down. And I would think someone with a 100-year-old house would want to see more 100-year-old houses left standing. Just my opinion. I'm not sure if that's what she feels. So is there?
Thank you.
I would love if there's any questions for everybody.
I think we're probably ready to start discussion and deliberating ourselves. I think if we have an opportunity to ask any questions, you'll be the first to hear. So,
okay, thank you.
All right. In order to have that discussion, someone needs to move the resolution. Someone like to move it just for discussion purposes? Councilmember Tamlin-Crango.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move E1, public hearing, plan unit development, file number PUD-020, JPLN 2023-0021. Proposed Village of Hastings PUD, east side of Livernois, north of Square Lake, pin number 88-20-03-301-008. 023, 024, 025, and 88-20-03-351-004. Section 3, presently zone NN Neighborhood Node Q in R1B, 1 family residential zoning district, as printed in the agenda packet.
Second.
All right. Moved by Councilmember Chamberlain Crangus, supported by Councilmember Gunn. To approve for discussion for now. E1, public hearing, plan unit development, file number PUD 020, JPLN 2023-0021, proposed Village of Hastings PUD, east side of Livernois, north of Square Lake, PIN number 88-20-03-008-008-023-024-025, and 88-20-03-351-004, Section 3, presently zoned NN Neighborhood Node Q and R1B One Family Residential Zoning District as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion. Would like to start. Mayor Pro Tem Hodrick.
First, I want to thank my colleagues for the questions that you asked tonight. The Planning Commission and the work that the commissioners did together with the developer. I've watched every meeting, taken in every detail. I didn't ask a lot of questions here tonight before because I feel like I'm living and breathing this proposal and have been right along with you. And I know there was a lot of good work in that. I know that you are a resident of Troy and you care, and I am not anti-development or anti-developer. In fact, many of the residents I've spoken to recognize something is going to go there, that as a developer you have private property rights, and what we're discerning is what makes sense to go there. A PUD has to meet a high test, and this to me fundamentally did not meet that test. As I said, I watched closely all the Planning Commission meetings and all of the discussions related. I watched the resident input and all the work to try to nudge the proposal along to attempt to meet the test. But objectively looking at what's before us, in my opinion, this proposal does not meet enough of the standards, including the public benefit, the broader benefit to the public. Instead, in the end, after all the considerations, it has all the earmarks of essentially seeking a rezoning from R1B to something else to enable more condensed housing. I really feel a PUD should do much, much more for us. And worry about, we've always held our PUDs to a high standard. I really want to protect that and not set a different precedent. I appreciated the effort and the talk about preserving the 3 homes, historic homes, but I'm not understanding and expect that perhaps looking at the R1B, that those could still be preserved. But in the end, it's the density that is an issue, and it's taken a priority over the preservation even of those homes in the minds of our residents. At the end of the day, our job here is to be that final sense check. Sometimes we'll hear, well, the Planning Commission approved it, why didn't Council? It comes to us for that final zoom out view and sincere total effort to represent our fellow residents at this table. There's been a clear, unequivocal feedback on it, and it's not the NIMBY feedback. We're hearing very practical talk about the character, the transitions. By the way, I have never seen a traffic memo indicate that there's a problem with any development that's ever come before any of us, ever. So common sense just sometimes has to play. I know that can be frustrating, but never in all my time have we had a memo come back to say, gee, there's an issue with the traffic, you shouldn't do this. And so it's incumbent on us who live here to understand what fits and to really, truly try to represent that. So that, in a nutshell, that is why I will be voting no. I appreciate the constructive dialogue that has gone on, and I just wanted to make clear, why I would be a no vote, and wanted to also thank the developer, recognize and understand the work that you put into it, know that I did go look. I'm very familiar. I've taken this very seriously. And so my no vote is a very thoughtful, considerate one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick. Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranger.
Thank you, Mayor. Exactly as Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick had said, our decision tonight is not will there be development or not, but how can we help ensure the best possible development listening to our residents. And I do want to commend Mr. Abathira. I appreciate the lower height, with this development of the 2 stories, the preserving the older homes, the attempt at the missing middle housing, although again, I always say that price point, it's not really missing middle. Some fun park-like amenities, and there has been a dynamic process with Planning Commission, so I appreciate that. But I come back to actually the advice that Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick gave to me. When I joined council, you talked about when there's a development, you need to go out. You need to just stand there and be in the middle of it and just, does it fit? Because at the end of the day, and I believe you got that advice actually from another developer here in Troy who admitted, as a developer, you're dreamers, you have visions. But for us, and we know the neighbors around there, go and stand in the middle, and do you see that compatibility? Do you imagine drive, and you had that experience of trying to turn left onto Livernois, and is that possible? Or what is that like? And have that experience. So as I wrestled with this, I appreciate the comments of, I believe we have a municipal lawyer or former municipal attorney here, that was exactly what hit me this weekend, are we diluting what we mean by the standard of a PUD? As I asked this question today in the advanced questions, I did find out that, some of what the public means or community means is maybe different than what I thought. And there have been PUDs approved, it looks like, that have had private parks. But since I've been on council, I have been proud to approve and move forward on PUDs that have public amenities, that are connected to Troy trails, that are connected to bocce balls or parks that anyone can walk into and access and take part of. So for me, to meet some of those standards, I need to see an actual public, community, wider use. And I hear that from our residents, that they want that as well. And I agree with Jeff Williams. I've agreed all along that there needs to be a diversity of land uses. Yes, I guess technically, by a PUD, you could have just housing, but what this corner needs, it does need housing. We need housing, but we need coffee shops. We need places for those kids at Smith and to be able to go and be able to get something to eat or a safe third space like a coffee shop to work in. I want a POD that somehow can have like the coffee shop and have the housing, not a putting green and water and butterfly gardens and pickleball courts that are only used in the summer and only used by those residents that live there. I think the traffic concerns are very, very real, and not having a connection to Square Lake. I think that speaks to the health, safety, and welfare of our city as, the need for public amenities and compatibility. I look at 2 of those 4 sides and I'm not seeing that compatibility. And then even the retention pond that's proposed, there's water there right now. I mean, I presume that's why that is the location that has been chosen. But I walked through the area with my son and it's muddy, it's water already. And so of course there's concerns with that. But I think the bigger thing for me too is knowing there are these 2 extra lots. And I think and I know that's not on the table today, but there's concern, there's trust, there's questions that people have. And I think without knowing, and for me feeling what the PODs that I have approved and moved forward and what I want to see, I'm just not seeing that come together. There's something that's missing. This doesn't feel like a POD to me. So for that reason, that's where I'm leading in my vote. No.
Thank you. Councilmember Chanda.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm kind of join my colleagues. I also struggled with if this development really meets the PUD standard, and this is the first time I'm actually approving any of these. So I looked hard into it, and that's why I asked the question. And in my mind, doesn't really meet any of the PUD standards, and or maybe meet some of them, but not sufficient number of PUD standards that, and we don't want to dilute the standard because PUDs are there for a different reason. I also happen to walk in that area, as I did in most of Troy in recent months, and I did get a feel for that area. You know, has its own feel. It's a historic nature. I am all for housing development. I mean, that's one of my concerns is affordability and availability of housing, and that is something I believe one of the gentlemen that spoke, the brave soul, I think Mr. Nolan, brought this up. It is a true concern, but I don't believe this development really addresses any of that. I mean, the homes are not, in the $500,000 range, are not really affordable, not that middle, and 9 more units are not going to really add to the availability of housing. So that's a bigger concern, but my main reason for not voting for this or voting no on this is that it really doesn't meet the standard that PUDs demand, and that's for that reason I'll vote no on this.
Thank you. Additional discussion? No? No? Anybody else? Guess repetitive? Last chance? You good? Yeah. Councilmember Hamilton?
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. What's been said has kind of covered my thoughts on everything. I think back to, we had a few cluster developments come to us on Eckford a couple years ago, if you remember that. And there was one on the north side and one on the south side. And we approved the one on the north side, and didn't approve the one on the south side. And we didn't approve the one on the south side because a lot of in order to do a cluster development, you can have a few more homes if you preserve more green space. Well, the green space they preserved on that, they had to preserve it anyway. The point of the cluster is to kind of bring forth a bigger change to preserve more land than we would have without that. In the same kind of thought, the PUD is supposed to bring an extra benefit to the city as opposed to just a rezoning or opposed to what is available by right. And again, I don't see enough of a benefit to approve it at this time. And we've approved some pretty darn big PUDs in the past. The one at that's going in right now with 170 units that they manage, that came through with minimal neighborhood resistance because I think it did provide a clear benefit to the city, manage the trails and pathways. So I have to say this wasn't a close decision. To be honest, I'll be voting no.
Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to thank Mr. Abethera for all your hard work because I do believe that you really did try to work with residents, and there were so many things that I really wanted to like. I liked that you tried to preserve those 3 homes. I like that you brought down the levels from the 3-story down to 2-story homes, and I think that you were really trying. But I do have to agree with my colleagues that, in my opinion, this just doesn't fit with the spirit of what we consider a PUD. And excuse me. And so, when I think of a PUD, I think of more mixed use, not just necessarily different housing stock, and more of a benefit for the community, as what was stated earlier. And I think that also the concerns that the residents expressed was very valid, particularly when it comes to traffic and water concerns. My daughter happens to attend Smith, and so I travel through that intersection quite a bit, and I definitely do see the traffic. And I would be very concerned about children, walking and, all of those kinds of things. So, so for that reason, I will also be voting no on this project, but thank you very much.
Councilmember Gunn.
Well, I'll just concur too that I see a lot of hard work put into this project. I do think you have a community willing to work together to try and develop what you think could work there. That would, several of these people have said they know you're going to develop something. Maybe I guess another meeting of the minds and come on back.
try to be brief. Haven't been here in a while. I'm pretty good. No, I mean, you guys have said most of everything. Here's the thing. First, the residents, I'm going to start with the residents that were here. A lot of you said things or asked questions that we haven't really addressed tonight necessarily. There are issues all over the city related to infrastructure, flooding, water issues. It's an issue that we're all going to have to face regardless of what development happens at your corner. And it is something we as a city are looking at. And I know we've got a city engineer who's focused on it. We've got our DPW director. Everyone's really highly focused on how that's going to, what this means for our future regardless. I mean, storms come, rain comes. We've got a lot of development already. So that issue is citywide is being looked at, will continue to be looked at. We'll continue to push for additional information and any innovative ideas that we can do and bring to the table to help ease some of those concerns. I want to thank all the residents who came forward, and I've spoken with many of you. I've met with some of you. I've met with Mr. Abathera. I've talked to Mr. Abathera. It's what I do. It's how I feel I do my job best. I like to hear the diversity of opinion and thoughts and representing of all sides on this. If I can joke, it's kind of fun to see some of you in person because I've either only seen you at a planning commission meeting on TV or on social media. So fun to put some live action faces to some of your names. I've gone through a big back and forth over this project for a few years now. In fact, I can go back 6 years because I remember when the former mayor said to me, oh, he lived on Telford. My neighborhood's got to be up in arms about these 3-story condos that are going to get approved by right by the planning commission, a previous planning commission. So to the, I can't remember who asked or who brought it up about transparency. Those 3-story condos were approved in an open meeting with the public planning commission in normal course of business because that was what the zoning allowed for that parcel. Some of you learned about it later, but it was the transparent process. It was just the way it worked. But I ultimately am, I'm with my colleagues on voting no on this project. The PUD standard is a tough standard for me. I really struggle, and I don't know about the rest of you with, how do we really define sufficient number? That's a very subjective thing, and it's probably subjective by design in a certain respect because every PUD is different, as Mr. Salvadon has said. But it does make it difficult, not just for us, but for Mr. Abathera, who, as you all know, have been with him in this room many times already for planning commission meetings. It's been several years of a process, which is, I'm trying to think of a word that's not offensive. It's asinine to me that a project can go on this long and as many meetings that Mr. Abathera attended planning commission just to get to this point to where, as Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick said, we are the final sense check for a reason, but it does make people think, well, wait a minute, what have I been doing all this time? There's going to be planning commissioners who aren't going to understand what's happening here tonight because they thought they did a really good job, and they did, of going through and asking questions and trying to negotiate as it is allowed to do. But it is a difficult process. I think maybe I'm reconciling even in the moment here. The reason it took so long and it's so difficult is because it's probably not right for a PUD in the way it was designed in that parcel. Some of the ones that have moved through the process quicker didn't have opposition, made more sense, and met many more of those standards, or more clearly met some of those standards. I've seen planning commissioners enunciate all 18 standards and try to make a case for each one. You did a nice job tonight, Gary, of doing what you could in the time you were given. But I think many of us could easily argue against all of those same standards as well. And if it's not clear, I think we run into problems in preserving not just that corner, but our city as a whole and the PUD process and what its main purpose is. I guess I'm more than anything, I am curious about what will proceed on these properties moving forward. Ultimately, that's not part of a PUD decision for me. Whether or not something else is going to be built is not one of those 18 standards that I look at and whether or not I approve a PUD, nor is whether or not he owns adjacent property and what he's going to do. Those aren't the standards that we look at. They're great questions, and I understand, but that's not how these decisions are made. I'm hopeful that, Mr. Abathera, first of all, his name is sitting right here next to me, which is awkward because he does serve on our BCA. He's a community member that's been in this community for a long time and has done a lot of good things for our community. And I know there's been some intense feelings over the past couple of years, different times, different meetings. I hope that there can be some form of, working together. It's not about working together to build a better project. It's his property, and he's going to develop how he sees is going to benefit him in his finances. That's the reality of development. But if he's going to need some kind of change in zoning or something from us, I know he recognizes, especially tonight, that whether or not the community goes along with it at a certain level is going to make a difference. So I'm hoping there can be some peace brought to the neighborhood. And for Mr. Abathera, because he's had a long road with this. My final thanks and comments are to the planning commissioners. Some of you, I'm sure, are watching. You have done an excellent job working this through your system to the best of your abilities and what you've been able to do. That is, you've played your role very well, and I appreciate that. Also appreciate that several of the planning commissioners on there now who have dealt with this PUD were not the ones that approved and worked with the 3-story condo unit in 2018. It's a very different era in our planning commissioner body and in general. And I actually want to thank, believe it or not, I'm going to end with thanking Brent, because he often becomes the bad guy in these events. He comes up and speaks what sounds like for the developer only, but he plays he walks a very tightrope in doing what's best for the city and trying to help development happen in our city, which you've all agreed needs to happen, but also represent the city as a whole and the residents. And so he often gets a bad rap for being the guy that's up here trying to shove projects down the residents' throat. That's not the case. I hope you recognize that. He's a very, very hardworking city employee that cares very much about this community. One that he doesn't actually live in, but he loves it so much because he's here all the time. So I thank you, Brent. I'm ending with a thank you for Brent, of all things. If he can believe that, I don't know. So anyway, thank you all. I'm going to call for the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
No.
Councilmember Brooks?
No.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
No.
Councilmember Chanda?
No.
Councilmember Gunn?
No.
Councilmember Hamilton?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
No.
Motion fails. With that concludes public hearings. I'm going to take a 5-minute recess. We have a very full agenda, so let's take it 5 minutes, please.
It's been a long time, Ellen.
So, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, and City Administration, thank you for actually allowing me to speak here. I'm just here to thank the entire crew here for the. It's a big thank you. It's not just thank you. It's a big thank you, especially for the City of Troy and the PWD Director Kurt Bovensip and his team. He allowed us to be part of the design meetings, detailed design. So we were very involved in their process. So that's a great opportunity where we're able to express what's the needs of the cricket and the field, how it has to have the minimum necessary stuff. So thank you for the team. And I want to applaud and here to register how thorough and considerate their process was in terms of prioritizing the needs, the wants versus the nice to have versus the must to have type of stuff, and being able to meet the regulation or the standards of international standards plus the budget. That's striking the balance. So I just wanted to register that. Kudos to Kurt and his team. It has been a long journey, but I feel like at the end it's well worth it. And all I can guarantee and say that is that the city, the Troy resident are going to be proud of this administration. And thank you.
Thank you, Vinod. Good to see you.
Yes.
I think Robert Mertz was not in the original list.
Is Robert Mertz here? No. Dale, do you have items on the agenda or off the agenda?
Off the agenda.
All right, we'll see in a little bit then. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now's an opportunity for council to respond or reply. Or we could talk about it when we talk about the cricket field.
I just want to, it's for Vinod, just thank you, Vinod, for all your activism for this throughout the years. I remember you coming to budget meetings. Didn't you come to an advance once, maybe? Like, you have been very passionate about this cricket field, and I'm so proud to see it. We have such a huge community that wants this, and it's really exciting, so thank you.
All right. Next up is regular business. There are no I1 is board and committee appointments. There are no mayoral appointments, no city council appointments this evening. I2, board and committee nominations. I have no mayoral nominations this evening, and my understanding is there are no city council nominations either. All right. I just screwed up my screen. I3 is a request for closed session. I'll move. Be it resolved that Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268H, MCL 15.243G, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I3, request for closed session, as read into the record and printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries. After the last item on this public agenda, we will recess and move into the council chambers, council boardroom for our closed session. Next up is I4, 2024 City Council meeting schedule, and that'll be introduced by Meg Schubert, our Assistant City Manager, and Dylan Clark, our Management Analyst.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I4 in front of you tonight is a proposed amendment to the 2024 City Council meeting schedule. It is to include a special meeting on December 24th for the annual advance.
I think you mean December 7th, because I'm not going to meet on Christmas Eve.
Oh, yeah. Let's try that again. December 7th.
There we go.
24.
Yeah. Any questions about I4? Someone like to move the resolution? Councilmember Hamilton.
I'll move I4 2024 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga, that we approve I4 2024 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up, I5 2024 City of Troy Advanced Meeting Facilitation Consulting Services. Turn it back over to you, Meg.
So keeping with the theme that we just had there, item I5 in front of you is a bid waiver. It's requesting to waive the process here and award a contract for the advanced meeting facilitation to Vitrano Consulting LLC, led by James Vitrano. James has facilitated the last 2 advances that we've had at the city, and he has outlined the scope of his services in the attached documents there. City management recommends working with James again to facilitate our advance coming up this December.
Thank you. Any questions? Someone like to move it? Councilmember Chamberlain-Carranga.
I'll move I-5, 2024 City of Troy Advanced Meeting Facilitation Consulting Services as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Chamberlain-Carranga, supported by Councilmember Gunn, that we approve I-5, 2024 City of Troy Advanced Meeting Facilitation Consulting Services as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Carranga?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-6, Community Engagement and Priority Research, and that'll be introduced by Courtney Flynn, our Communications and Engagement Director, making her debut.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Before you this evening, I have a recommendation for you to waive the bid process and award a community engagement and priority research contract to Cobalt Community Research of Michigan. This is in the city's best interest for a residential survey not to exceed a total of $40,000, including unforeseen contingencies. The city has worked with Cobalt in the past several years for community research surveys and also for benchmarking surveys. This would be 2 separate surveys. The first would be done in early fall with the intention to have it completed for the advance. And then after the advance, there would be another survey to help guide discussions regarding the library and other priorities.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Hamilton.
Thanks, Mayor. Hi, Courtney. Nice to meet you in person for the
Good
first time
evening.
we spoke on the phone. Would the timeline look like for this if we approve it?
So the first survey, if the contracts were approved tonight, we would begin working with the company as soon as possible, knowing that it would need to go out hopefully in September, sometime in September. So then there's enough time to advertise it. There would be the statistically valid survey, so enough time for that to reach residents, have them fill it out, and then another portion would be available for the community to fill out via a web survey, and then for that information to be analyzed and then sent back to you in advance of the advance.
Oh, okay. Great. Councilmember Chamberlain-Carranga.
Thank you. Again, great to connect as well, Courtney, in person. Just so I'm clear, so there's these 2 components. It talks about the second component is will be more specified questions that we can ask. So is that the second survey that goes out, or is that still going to be in the first one?
So the first one will be more of a benchmarking survey, so similar questions that had been asked in the previous surveys the city has approved to be sent out. So everything from, what the community's budget priorities are, how they think the city is providing city services, and then the second survey, which would be after the advance, would be more targeted, if there's discussions regarding the library and, city facilities at the advance, maybe we decide that those are some more poignant questions to ask for the second survey.
So another follow-up question. So there could be time, depending on what we discuss in the advance, to kind of give direction to the second set of questions.
Correct.
Is that
Correct.
Okay, that's great. Wonderful.
Good question. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I believe the resolution printed in the agenda is wrong. It should be an amount to exceed $40,000, not $16,000.
I was just gonna, yeah.
Courtney said the right number and
Yeah.
the right number's in the memo, but the resolution on page 18.
Okay. Well, then I will move I-6, Community Engagement Priority Research, with the change of an amount not to exceed $40,000 as opposed to $16,000.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I-6, Community Engagement Priority Research as amended. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up is I-7 Bid Waiver and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, AirVac 911 Exhaust System and Installation of at Fire Stations 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and budget amendments, introduced by our Fire Chief, Peter Hollinger.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Council. Before you tonight is a bid waiver and a budget amendment. The current vehicle exhaust system that's in 5 of the 6 fire stations is in excess of 25 years old and has exceeded its useful life due to maintenance cost. We're doing it in 5 of the 6 stations because when Station 4 was built 7 years ago, we put a new system, the AirVac 911, that's recommended tonight in that station. It's proven to be a very effective model for the fire stations. So we want to move forward with that in the other fire stations. This is a budgeted project in the 2025 capital fund, but does need a budget amendment due to associated electrical cost.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
I'll move I-7 Bid Waiver and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, AirVac 911 Exhaust System and Installation at Fire Stations 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and budget amendments as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve I-7 Bid Waiver and Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, AirVac 911 Exhaust System and Installation at Fire Stations 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and budget amendments as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Only that it's hard to believe Station 4 is 7 years old already. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up, I-8, Standard Purchasing Resolution 8, Best Value Award, Bolin Park Cricket Field Construction and Budget Amendment, to be introduced by Kurt Bovenseep, our Public Works Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I know it's late, but I do want to keep the energy going with the cricket field here. Councilman Chanda, Representative McDonald, myself had an opportunity yesterday to hand out awards at the youth tournament hosted by the Michigan Youth Cricket Association, and we announced that tonight you were going to be presented with the construction award for the cricket field, and the cricket field was going to include dugouts and a scoreboard and synthetic turf, hybrid turf, and screen walls. And the eyes of these youth just lit up because there is no other field in Metro Detroit that offers any of those amenities for a cricket field. So their excitement was outstanding. But before you tonight, we do have a request to award a contract to the Premier Group. We've done a lot of work over the last 5 years for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and as it expires here in 2024, we started looking at some of those amenities and desires that the respondents didn't necessarily score as high as some of the things that we've already done. Representative McDonald was successful in getting us a $900,000 grant through the state of Michigan to work on this. We did expense $100,000 for the design of the field, and kudos to Vinod and Coach Victor, who went with us every step of the way. They were there at every design meeting, making sure that we were meeting the intent of the cricket community and specifically the youth. So it was a great experience, real good community involvement with that. We worked very hard to make sure that we tried to stay as close to that $900,000 budget as possible. And as you can see in the memo, everything but the contingency. I think the design is very good. It's just a lot of earthwork. I don't think we're going to need the contingency, but just in case, I would hate to halt the project to come back to the next city council meeting to get approval. So asking for that contingency, that would require the budget amendment. Still think it's a great investment. There was a couple alternatives in the proposal from Premier Group. One was being the asphalt pathway that goes all the way around the field. That was an alternative. We are asking to award that alternative, especially the Planning Commission, when we announced this for the site plan, the preliminary site plan approval process, they saw value in that too, knowing that these games can last all day. So that really gives an opportunity for the patrons and the spectators to have a place to walk and still watch the game, including that pathway throughout the entire park. So really real important for that pathway. And it also delineates the field from the rest of the park because it is such a large field. It really creates that boundary as you're entering something different. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Councilmember Brooks.
Does that pathway also allow for more wheelchair accessibility?
Absolutely, yes. The bleachers will be just off the pathway. So yes, it will offer some ADA accessibility.
Councilmember Tanda.
Is that design available in the public domain somewhere people can take a look at?
We could put it online. We were trying to be conservative with the cost, so we don't have any real pretty renderings. We can certainly put up what I presented to the Planning Commission as the site plan approval process. Again, we were very conscious on trying to work it within, so no pretty renderings, but we can definitely put that up on the recreations page, which has the parks along with it.
Councilmember Hamilton, I know what you're going to ask. I bet.
Yeah, what I always ask, when are you going to break ground?
Timeline.
Yeah, when's it going to be done? So we're hoping to have a groundbreaking ceremony because this is such a big deal to the community. So sometime here end of August, beginning of September. Once approved, that really allows us to engage the Premier Group, who's going to be responsible for the construction. We'll take a look at their schedule. They did indicate in their proposal that they plan on starting this fall. Turf establishment gets a little tricky depending on how weather goes this fall, but they're confident that we'll be playing cricket here come late next spring, 2025.
Wow, great, awesome. Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. So maybe getting ahead of myself, but I'm sure you're already thinking of this. In terms of the management, in terms of like who plays, rentals, is that recreation already thinking about how that will be handled? You know, because I see kids in my neighborhood, they're out behind a church playing cricket, and for them to be able to go in, will there be, formal, matches, rentals, but also kids could just play, as needed. So just wondering how that's being worked out.
Sure, reservations will be following similar to our other game fields, and recreation will be responsible for that. I don't see this being any different in the game field. So our 1, Troy residents take priority. 2, youth takes priority over adult leagues. So, and I think that's important, especially to the note behind me that youth really gets the priority, and then specifically Troy residents get the priority of this field. But I do want to say that this is going to be an internationally certified field. So this is going to have the ability to host tournaments and have our Troy youth organizations host those tournaments and play against people. As an example, just this past weekend, a team from Canada came. They had teams from Canada, teams from Ohio, and teams from Indiana to play in this tournament. So it's exciting. So yes, Troy, really centric, but with the opportunity to really host other communities and come in and enjoy the field.
So I assume there's not going to be any 50 and over leagues?
There may be. I think that's, with Michigan weather, I think that's one of the challenges with cricket in this region is, you go down to Texas and the Houston area, they get to play all year round, where we really only get about 4 months of play, and some of these games can last all day. So I think it will be a little tricky to get those adult leagues in, but I'm hopeful we'll be able to do it. Just might not be on the premier time.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
Thank you. Just a fun question. Wondering when can we, with Vinod, maybe set up a council versus staff match?
Yeah.
Teach us some cricket and we'll get out there.
Well, we saw Councilmember Chanda out there throwing balling over the weekend. So and I've never played, so you might already have the advantage.
I don't know about that. All right, I'm going to move I-8. Standard Purchasing Resolution 8, Best Value Award, Bolin Park Cricket Field Construction and Budget Amendment as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, that we approve I-8, Standard Purchasing Resolution 8, Best Value Award, Bolin Park Cricket Field Construction and Budget Amendment as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion?
Just,
Councilmember
take the time to thank, Director Bovenchip and your entire team, and we know then, everyone that's involved. It is a big thing for Troy, and I think people have been talking about cricket maybe 20 years ago or maybe 15 years ago, and finally coming to fruition. So I just wanted to take this moment to thank everyone, and really say bravo Let's look forward to the opening day, and then maybe we'll have a match.
I gotta learn to ice skate. I gotta learn to play cricket. There's a lot going on, and it's all hard to do with big scissors. Additional discussion? Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranko.
Thank you. And also excitement that our next Olympics here in the United States will include cricket. So yeah, we have a reason to get out there and learn. And having lived in the UK for 9 years, I have no excuse. You're gonna have to take me out, but no, I've gotta learn. But on a serious note, I also wanna, thank not only Rep. McDonald who brought this across the line, but also I think of our former Councilwoman Ann Erickson-Gauld and former Rep. Padma Kupa, who together, they were for years also strong advocates. So they're not here tonight, but we know that they're part of those seeds and sowing the ground to allow us to be here in this place tonight. So just want to remember them and thank them.
Additional discussion? I'll just say quickly, I'm happy to see Vinod tonight. I'm glad you came, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there over the weekend with you, but I know Kurt is the Mr. Cricket of Troy now. I've attended a few events with him, but I'm happy to see this, and I do, just what Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranko just said, she's so right. I mean, thank you to Rep. McDonald, of course, and everyone in the Lansing government who approved this, and but there were, Councilmember Erickson-Gauld and Rep. Padma Kupa worked hard on this issue. And I also just want to call out the value of getting the funds from the state, because we have a lot of needs in our city and we get a lot of requests for pickleball and other recreational facilities. But the funding of this size, this project wouldn't be happening today if it wasn't for the funding we got back from the state. Remember, our tax dollars go to Lansing. We're bringing some back. That's how I look at that, and I'm happy to say that. That brought a great value to us. So timing was good for all of that. The advocacy from residents and from elected officials was really important. And to Kurt, of course, thank you for continuing to carry the torch, Olympic pun aside, with this, because you've presented with Parks, you've presented at Planning Commission, you've presented here several times, and I know you're excited about this, and I am too. So with that, I'll ask for the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranko?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes. Motion carries. Looking forward to the groundbreaking. That concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. There is a late submittal amended resolution for J12. Anyone would like to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed with the addition of the J12 late submittal.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet with the late submittal of J12. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranko?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. If you're here for an item on the consent agenda, all have been approved this evening. Next up is K, and it's printed wrong on the agenda. It's actually supposed to be an announcement of public hearings and memorandums. It says public comment for items not on the agenda, but there are no announcements. So we move on to L, public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We do have 2 people signed up. First up is Ed Ross.
Good evening. I was just going to pop in real quick, and I can assure you I was clean-shaven when I got here. So, after the election was over, I sent Mr. Chanda a congratulatory message, but I wanted to do it in person. We may have different ideas on what it means, but I think we all share a common goal of doing what's best for Troy. I also wanted to invite him to join me for a coffee to talk about some of the concerns I have, and now I kind of want to extend that all to you individually. Everybody in this city is on the same side. We live together, we drive together, we shop together at stores, our kids go to school together, we see each other at the library and at the parks. And so there's no room for partisan or any other divisiveness. Every one of our 90,000 residents has an idea of what's important to us. And as a council, it's your job to represent those ideas and make the tough choices that we need in the city. Over 6,000 people voted for me last week, and let's be honest, it wasn't because of my good looks, charming personality, or my sarcastic sense of humor. I promise you. It was because they share many of the concerns and feel that my work as a first responder represents a unique perspective that they believe is missing. So the city of Troy, as we heard tonight and other places, is facing many challenges. So I do welcome the opportunity to meet with each one of you and discuss some of my ideas on a one-on-one basis. Councilman Chanda, congratulations again on your win. I know you are going to do a great job, and I look forward to meeting with you. So again, congratulations, and thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Dale Murish.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I won't take up too much of your time. I did want to echo the people that there were a lot of people that didn't want to speak but were opposed to this PUD as well. And you guys handled it very well, I thought, and voted the same way I would have. And I'm pleased to see that we don't have any more 4.5-story apartment buildings overlooking people's backyards, that they reduced from 3 stories down to 2. So that's a step in the right direction. And it's just a matter of how those puzzle pieces are arranged in the thing. Bike routes. I have not had time to follow all the bike route signs through town, but the one that I use the most, I have some ideas for improving the signage for that to get it. It's crossing Big Beaver Road, and that's very difficult at any time of the day. There's a crosswalk 3 blocks to the west that I usually don't go to because it's riding on the sidewalk. And anyway, coming over here, the interchange on the I-75 was, in my opinion, a step backward. I don't know what these basket weave interchanges are for, but heavy traffic through there, you don't go through all the lights with the timing. And the library, I'd like to know what the maintenance expense has been on it. In the mentioned mold remediation and the costs for. Anyway, I'm sort of opposed to this new library idea, and the remodeling price was nearly as high as creating a new one, so that must have been a complete remodel. So anyway, I'll be back to talk about the library once I look at the budget, and take care. And nice job, everyone, working together well and staying up long hours, and enjoy your closed session meeting.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now is an opportunity for council members or city administration to reply. Councilmember Chanda.
Thank you, Mayor. I see Mr. Ross left, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank him for a very hard-fought election. I mean, and I actually didn't get his message, but I will definitely like to meet with him for coffee. I mean, if he's watching, on TV. We live in a democracy where we compete in the ballot box. That's a blessing that we all enjoy, and elections like this, reinforces that thing that we are asking for people's vote, which means asking for our ideas. And I wanted to thank him for running a very clean campaign based on issue that I did. So just wanted to take the time. So.
Thank you. Additional response? I'll just say to you, Dale, really quickly, if you email us, the budget information relating to the library maintenance is probably relatively easy to piece together. If you send an email, we'll get a response to you.
Yeah.
And then bike lanes, all the good stuff. Thanks for coming forward. Appreciate it. See you soon, I'm sure. All right, that concludes council response to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have no council referrals this evening. We do have a good amount of reports. Anyone have any comments on the reports this evening? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crango.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to call it 05 and just congratulate our city clerk for earning her level 3 certification through the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks. And just want to, as I just did, thank her for a great, another great election. And some of us were out around the precincts at the end of the day. And so just, again, always appreciate all those who are listening, who volunteered. We thank you for your time and your service to the city. And I'm sure you'll be recruiting, or you already are now, for November. So, so please bear that in mind. And we thank you for your part in democracy.
Additional comments on the reports? I mean, of course, Aileen always gets awards and certifications, so it's become pretty standard fare, but she's a wonderful city clerk. I also just want to recognize the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award that we got, again, from the Government Finance Officers Association. A lot of hard work by our finance department, and all city employees goes into creating those annual budget documents and presentations, and it's nice to see it formally recognized, and because I know we appreciate the work done as well. Council comments. Must be full moon. All right, there's nobody signed up for public comment, I don't think, for items on or not on the agenda for members of the public outside of Troy. We do have a closed session, so we'll recess from here and pick up in closed session.
I'll save my nice stuff for next week.